What if the ground beneath your feet, the very history you were taught in school, held secrets so profound they could rewrite the story of humanity? For centuries, we've pieced together the narrative of our ancient past from fragments. A stone tool here, a cave painting there, constructing a timeline we believe to be true. But scattered across the globe, buried in forgotten earth and hidden within dark caverns, lie objects that simply do not fit. They are silent, stubborn anomalies, relics from a time so distant that their original purpose has been erased, leaving behind only a trail of bewildering questions. These aren't just old rocks or broken pottery. They are profound enigmas crafted by hands that belong to a world we can scarcely comprehend. Each one is a crack in the foundation of established history, a whisper from the deep past that challenges our most fundamental assumptions about the ingenuity, the technology, and even the spiritual life of our prehistoric ancestors. This is the compelling mystery that draws us in, the irresistible pull to understand a past that is far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. Today, we embark on a journey to explore 30 of the most puzzling relics ever unearthed. We will travel from the sun-baked plains of Africa to the misty highlands of South America, from the deepest Siberian permafrost to the ocean's floor, to examine artifacts that defy logical explanation. Imagine holding an object that is hundreds of thousands of years old, an object so advanced or so bizarre that its very existence seems impossible for its time. Some appear to be out-of-place machinery, complex astronomical devices, or sculptures depicting beings that shouldn't exist in the fossil record. Others bear inscriptions in unknown languages or are made from materials sourced from hundreds of miles away, hinting at vast, forgotten trade networks or cultural connections that span continents. These are not mere curiosities, they are active puzzles, each one a piece of a grander, hidden mosaic of human history, waiting for someone to decipher its code. So prepare to have your perception of the past stretched to its limits. This is more than a simple list. It is an expedition into the unknown corners of archaeology, a deep dive into the artifacts that continue to baffle the world's most brilliant minds. We will investigate the top theories, from the plausible to the provocative, and weigh the evidence for ourselves. You will be left to ponder what these objects truly represent. Are they evidence of lost civilizations, contact with other intelligences, or simply a testament to a level of prehistoric human genius that we have yet to fully acknowledge? The journey into the mystery of these 30 prehistoric relics starts now. Our journey begins not in a dusty tomb or a hidden cave, but at the bottom of the sea, where one of the most stunning archaeological finds in history lay forgotten for 2,000 years. In the year 1900, just off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, sponge divers seeking shelter from a storm stumbled upon the remains of an ancient Roman-era shipwreck. Among the shattered amphorae and beautiful marble statues, they recovered a seemingly unimpressive lump of corroded bronze and wood, so encrusted with sea life it was almost overlooked. It was set aside with other artifacts, a curiosity that would take months, even years, to properly reveal its secrets. When the crust was finally carefully chipped away, archaeologists were left utterly speechless. They were not looking at a statue or a piece of jewelry, but at the remains of an intricate mechanical device, a complex clockwork of interlocking bronze gears, precisely cut and arranged within a wooden case no larger than a shoebox. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, an object so technologically advanced that it single-handedly shattered our understanding of ancient Greek science. For decades, the device remained a profound mystery. How could such a sophisticated piece of engineering, resembling the internal workings of an 18th-century Swiss watch, possibly date back to the 1st or 2nd century before the Common Era? The gears were inscribed with tiny, faded Greek letters, a user's manual etched in metal. Using advanced imaging techniques like 3D X-ray tomography, teams of scientists and historians have painstakingly peered inside the calcified fragments, virtually reconstructing the machine's complex inner workings. What they discovered was nothing short of an ancient analog computer, designed to predict the movements of the heavens with remarkable accuracy. By turning a hand crank on the side, a user could calculate the positions of the sun, the moon, and likely the 5 known planets across the zodiac. It could predict lunar and solar eclipses and even accounted for the moon's irregular orbit, a subtlety we now call lunar anomaly. It was, in essence, a portable, mechanical representation of the universe, a device that could show you the celestial ballet for any given date in the past or future. The implications of this are staggering. The Antikythera Mechanism was not a one-off miracle. Its craftsmanship suggests it was a product of a known tradition of sophisticated gearwork and astronomical knowledge, hinting at a lost chapter in the history of technology. The genius behind it is often attributed to thinkers from the school of Archimedes, but its exact origins remain debated. What is undeniable is that this level of mechanical sophistication would not be seen again in Europe until the development of complex astronomical clocks in the 14th century, a gap of over 1,000 years. It forces us to ask a haunting question: how much knowledge was lost with the fall of the ancient world? The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a silent, bronze-geared testament to a potential golden age of science and technology that was wiped from the historical record, a ghost of progress that reminds us that our linear narrative of human advancement is far from complete. It suggests that the seeds of our modern scientific world were planted and then forgotten long before we ever believed possible. But if the Antikythera Mechanism represents a forgotten peak of ancient technology, our next relic presents a challenge that is even more fundamental, questioning not just our history but the very timeline of life on Earth. The story takes us from the depths of the Mediterranean to the banks of a small creek in Texas. In the summer of 1936, a couple walking along Red Creek near the town of London, Texas, made a bizarre discovery. A piece of rock had fallen from a cliff face, and as it shattered, it revealed something utterly impossible embedded within, what appeared to be a modern-looking hammer. This wasn't a primitive stone tool. It had a distinct wooden handle and a solid metallic head. The truly baffling part, however, was the rock itself. Geologists who later examined the find identified the stone matrix encasing the hammer as a sedimentary rock known as Cretaceous sandstone, a formation that dates back to a period between 145 million and 65 million years ago, an era when dinosaurs roamed the planet, and millions of years before modern humans, or even our most distant hominid ancestors, are supposed to have evolved. The hammer, now famously known as the London Hammer, became an instant sensation and an enduring enigma. The wooden handle was partially coalified, a process that occurs over immense spans of time under pressure, and the iron head was analyzed to be of exceptional purity, lacking the bubbles and impurities typically found in modern industrial iron. Proponents of the artifact's authenticity argue that the hammer could not have been dropped or pushed into a crack that later filled with rock. The stone had formed around the object, sealing it in a solid, unbroken cocoon for eons. For those who accept this premise, the implications are staggering. It suggests the presence of an intelligent, tool-using civilization in a period so remote it defies all conventional understanding of evolution and human history. The theories proposed to explain it are as bold as the find itself, ranging from evidence of advanced prehistoric human culture that was completely wiped from the fossil record, to the more speculative idea of time travelers accidentally leaving behind a tool. Skeptics, however, offer alternative explanations that focus on the complex and often misunderstood processes of geology. One prominent theory suggests that the hammer is not nearly as ancient as it seems, but is instead a miner's tool from the 19th century that was lost. The highly soluble minerals in the surrounding rock could have dissolved and recrystallized around the object relatively quickly. creating a hard, concretion-like shell that merely gives the appearance of great age. This process, known as concretion formation, can happen over decades or centuries, not necessarily millions of years. The exceptional purity of the iron could also be explained by ancient but unknown smelting techniques that produced a high-quality metal. The debate surrounding the London hammer encapsulates the very essence of historical mystery. It pits a literal, face-value interpretation of the evidence against scientific principles of geological formation and established timelines. Whether it is a profound anomaly that rewriting our textbooks or a fascinating example of how nature can play tricks on us, the London hammer forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and reminds us that the past may still hold surprises that shake the foundations of what we think we know. Leaving behind the geological conundrum of the London hammer, we travel to the sands of ancient Mesopotamia, where an unassuming clay pot sits at the center of a debate that could rewrite the history of technology. Unearthed in 1936, just outside the city of Baghdad, this 2,000-year-old artifact consists of a 13-centimeter high clay jar, inside of which was a rolled copper sheet forming a cylinder housing a solid iron rod. The top of the jar was sealed with an asphalt plug, which also served to insulate the iron rod from the copper cylinder. To most archaeologists at the time, it was a curious but unremarkable find, perhaps a container for holding religious scrolls. But in 1938, a German museum assistant named Wilhelm Koenig took a closer look and proposed a revolutionary idea. He suggested that if this jar were filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice, it would function as a primitive electric battery, a galvanic cell capable of producing a small but consistent electrical current. The principle is fundamentally the same as any modern battery. The acidic liquid would act as an electrolyte, facilitating a chemical reaction between the two different metals. Electrons would flow from the more reactive iron rod, the anode, through the electrolyte to the less reactive copper cylinder, the cathode. If wires were attached to the two metals, a circuit would be completed and a voltage would be generated. Experiments with replicas of the so-called Baghdad Battery have confirmed that it is indeed possible. Such a cell can produce a low voltage around 1 to 2 volts. While this isn't enough to power any significant device, it could produce a noticeable tingling sensation if touched, or more intriguingly, it could be used for electroplating, depositing a thin layer of a precious metal like gold or silver onto the surface of another metal object. This last possibility is particularly compelling, as ancient Mesopotamian artisans were known for their exquisite gold and silver work, and some objects from the period show signs of a very fine plating technique that has never been fully explained. The academic world, however, remains sharply divided. Skeptics argue that there is no definitive evidence to support the battery theory. No wires or electrical conductors were found with the jars, and no electroplated objects from the period have been conclusively proven to be the result of such a technique. Furthermore, the asphalt seal, which is cited as a key component for insulation, could just as easily have been a simple, effective way to keep a scroll dry and secure inside a container. The primary purpose of the jar, they contend, was almost certainly storage. The biggest challenge to the battery hypothesis is the complete absence of any written record or artistic depiction from the Parthian period, when the jar was created, that even hints at a conceptual understanding of electricity. For a technology to exist, especially one so revolutionary, it seems unlikely that it would leave no trace in the intellectual or cultural record beyond a few enigmatic parts. Yet the possibility continues to captivate because it hints at a different kind of ancient ingenuity. Perhaps the effect was discovered accidentally, a scroll storage jar that happened to be filled with rainwater and citrus juice, causing the metals to react and produce a strange sensation. An observant priest or artisan might have recognized the phenomenon and learned to replicate it, using it for purposes we can only speculate about, from mystical religious experiences to practical metalworking, without ever developing a full scientific theory to explain it. This artifact forces us to consider that ancient knowledge may not have followed the same logical, documented path as modern science. The Baghdad Battery, whether it was a functional electrochemical cell or a simple storage jar, stands as a powerful symbol of the gaps in our understanding. It represents the tantalizing idea that our ancestors may have stumbled upon principles of science that would be lost for centuries, only to be rediscovered in a different age, leaving us to wonder how many other technological secrets are still buried, waiting for a curious mind to make the connection. From the debate over ancient electricity, we soar into the skies of antiquity with an artifact that seems to defy gravity itself. Discovered in 1898 during the excavation of a tomb in Saqqara, Egypt, this object is a small, beautifully crafted wooden model dating back to around 200 years before the Common Era. At first glance, it appears to be a stylized bird, which is precisely how it was catalogued and largely forgotten for decades, stored away in the Cairo Museum's basement as just another charming trinket from the Ptolemaic period. It was not until the 1970s that a physician and model airplane enthusiast named Kolul Messiha took a fresh look at the so-called Saqqara bird and noticed something extraordinary. While it has the general head of a falcon, a common religious symbol, its body is unlike any bird found in nature. It lacks the legs and feet one would expect on a figurine meant to stand or perch. More importantly, its wings are not flared for flapping flight but are straight, angled, and perfectly streamlined, resembling the airfoil of a modern aircraft wing. The most compelling feature, however, is its tail. Instead of the horizontal, fan tail of a bird, the Saqqara bird has a distinct vertical tail fin, a component crucial for stability in flight, but completely unnecessary and non-existent in the avian world. This observation launched a wave of speculation and scientific investigation. Aeronautical engineers who have examined the object and others who have built scaled-up, functional replicas have reported that the Saqqara bird exhibits sophisticated aerodynamic principles. When tested in wind tunnels or thrown as a glider, models based on its design have demonstrated remarkable stability and lift. The shape of its wings generates airflow patterns that reduce drag, and the vertical tail fin effectively counters yaw, preventing the model from spinning out of control. These are not the characteristics of a simple toy or a random carving. They are the hallmarks of a design optimized for flight through air. For proponents of the ancient aircraft theory, this is compelling evidence that the Egyptians, or a culture they had contact with, possessed a foundational understanding of aerodynamics. They suggest the artifact could be a scale model of a much larger glider, perhaps used for ceremonial purposes or even as a blueprint for a working craft, pushing the dawn of human flight back by 2 millennia. The mainstream archaeological perspective, however, offers a more terrestrial explanation. They argue that interpreting the object as an aircraft is a clear case of pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns like modern technology in ancient objects. Egyptologists point out that the bird was found alongside other models of boats, animals, and servants, all intended for the afterlife. In this context, it is far more likely that the Saqqara bird is exactly what it was initially thought to be, a model of a bird, specifically a falcon, a creature deeply associated with the god Horus. The absence of legs could be explained by the fact that it was meant to be mounted on a stand or a boat model, a common practice. The distinctive tail they propose could represent a stylized feather or a fish tail, symbols also present in Egyptian iconography. The idea that it is a child's toy is also plausible. After all, what child wouldn't enjoy throwing a wooden glider? The aerodynamic properties that seem so advanced to us could simply be the result of intuitive, trial-and-error craftsmanship by an artisan who noticed that certain shapes flew better than others without any formal understanding of the physics involved. This clash of interpretations makes the Saqqara bird a perfect symbol for the entire field of historical mysteries. It forces us to question where the line lies between coincidence and intention, between intuitive design and applied science. Is it more likely that an ancient civilization discovered principles of flight that were then completely lost, leaving no other evidence in their vast artistic and written record? Or are we, with our modern minds saturated by technology, projecting our own worldview onto a culture for whom flight was a spiritual, not a mechanical aspiration? The truth may forever be entombed with its creator. Yet, the Saqqara bird continues to capture our imagination because it represents a tantalizing possibility that the human dream of soaring through the air is far older than the Wright brothers, and that the seeds of our greatest technological achievements might have been planted in the sands of time, only to be buried and waiting for a future age to rediscover them. While the Saqqara bird invites us to look to the skies, our next enigma draws our attention deep into the earth, to a discovery that seems to fuse the ancient with the industrial in a way that is jarringly anachronistic. In the winter of 1961, a group of rockhounds were searching for geodes near the town of Olancha, California, in the Coso Mountains. Geodes are fascinating natural formations, rough, unassuming rocks on the outside that, when cracked open, reveal a hollow interior lined with beautiful crystals. While examining their finds, Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike Mikesell noticed one specimen that was unusually heavy. When Mikesell later cut into it with a diamond-edged saw back at his gem shop, he was shocked to find not a crystal cavity but something entirely man-made. Inside the rock was a circular section of what appeared to be a ceramic or porcelain cylinder, surrounding a 2mm metal core. A ring of what looked like copper surrounded the cylinder, and the whole assembly was encased in a hard, hexagonal clay-like shell. To the discoverers, it bore a striking and undeniable resemblance to a modern spark plug. The story quickly captured public imagination, dubbed the Coso Artifact. The truly baffling claim, based on an initial geological analysis, was that the geode itself was supposedly 500,000 years old. If that were true, it would mean this piece of advanced machinery was sealed inside a rock formation long before Homo sapiens as we know them even walked the earth. The implications were, of course, revolutionary, suggesting the presence of a technologically advanced civilization in the distant past, or perhaps even visitors from elsewhere. The artifact changed hands and was studied by various individuals, with creationists and ancient astronaut theorists seizing upon it as definitive proof that mainstream science had its timelines completely wrong. For a time, the Coso Artifact became a central piece of evidence for those arguing that our history is not what we think it is. However, the path of a true mystery is rarely straight, and the story of the Coso Artifact takes a significant turn when subjected to rigorous, skeptical investigation. The key question was not whether the object looked like a spark plug, but whether the encasing material was truly a 500,000-year-old geode. Later, more thorough analysis revealed that the geode was not a geode at all. True geodes form in specific volcanic or sedimentary conditions and have a characteristic crystalline lining. The material surrounding the spark plug was instead identified as a hard clay concretion, which can form much more rapidly around an object when mineral-laden water percolates through soil and deposits layers of hardpan, a type of cemented sediment. This process, similar to what may have happened with the London hammer, can encase an object in a convincing stone-like shell in a matter of decades, not millennia. The most convincing breakthrough came when researchers compared the internal components to known spark plug designs. In 2001, Pierre Stromberg and Paul Heinrich obtained detailed X-rays of the artifact taken years earlier. They identified the object almost certainly as a 1920 Champion spark plug, a common model used in Ford Model T and Model A engines. The specific design, including the hexagonal shape and the internal metal and porcelain components, matched perfectly. How did a 1920s spark plug end up encased in rock on a California mountaintop? The most plausible explanation is surprisingly mundane. The area where it was found was near old mining operations and had long been used for recreational off-roading. A spark plug from an early 20th century vehicle could have been dropped or discarded on the ground. Over the following 40 or 50 years, the natural processes of mineralization in that particular environment encased it in a hard concretion, which was then discovered by the rock hounds who misinterpreted its age. Yet, even with this compelling modern explanation, a faint aura of mystery persists, not about the object's origin, but about the power of context to deceive. The Coso Artifact serves as a crucial cautionary tale in the field of anomalistics. It demonstrates how a combination of sincere initial error, a compelling visual resemblance, and the public's desire for profound mysteries can create a seemingly unassailable enigma. The real puzzle is not the spark plug itself, but how easily we can be led astray when we want to believe. It underscores the importance of rigorous peer review and the application of Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. While it may not be evidence of a lost civilization, the Coso Artifact remains an important relic in its own right, a testament to the 20th century's own industrial age, now slowly being reclaimed by the very earth that briefly convinced some it was ancient. Shifting our focus from North America to the remote mountains of China, we encounter a relic that exists almost entirely within the realm of legend, a story so compelling it has become a cornerstone of alternative history despite a notable absence of physical proof. The tale of the Dropa stones begins in 1938, according to the account, when a Chinese archaeologist named Kai Pu-te is said to have led an expedition into the inaccessible Bayan Karaula Mountains on the border between China and Tibet. The team reportedly discovered a series of caves, their entrances seemingly artificially enlarged and smoothed. Inside, they found not evidence of early human habitation, but something far more bizarre. The caves contained neat rows of graves, and within them, the skeletons of small, fragile-looking beings with unusually large, elongated skulls and slender bodies. But the truly astonishing discovery was scattered across the cave floor, hundreds of stone discs, each about a foot in diameter, with a perfectly circular hole in the center, resembling primitive phonograph records. Each disc was said to be inscribed with a continuous spiral of tiny, barely visible hieroglyphics, a script so fine and precise it seemed impossible to have been carved with primitive stone tools. The story goes that the discs were initially dismissed as ceremonial objects and stored away with other artifacts, their strange inscriptions untranslated for 2 decades. Then, in 1962, a professor named Tsum Nui allegedly succeeded in deciphering the glyphs. The translation he produced was nothing short of extraordinary. The hieroglyphics told a tragic story of a peaceful, Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. Peaceful, a 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 peaceful. From the legendary and unverified tales of the Dropa stones, we now turn to a relic that is small in size but monumental in its implications, an artifact whose authenticity is undeniable, yet whose journey to its final resting place remains one of North America's most tantalizing puzzles. On the coast of Maine, at a site known as the Goddard Site on Penobscot Bay, archaeologists were carefully sifting through layers of soil that held the remains of a thriving Native American trade village active between 1250 and 1450 of the Common Era. Among the thousands of artifact stone tools, pottery shards, and bone fragments, they found a single, tiny object that seemed utterly out of place, a small, worn silver coin. When numismatists, experts in the study of currency, finally identified it, the results sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. This was no English or Spanish colonial coin. It was a Norse penny, a coin minted in Norway during the reign of King Olaf Kyrre, dating sometime between 1065 and 1080 of the Common Era. The discovery, famously known as the Maine Penny, instantly ignited the imagination. Here was a tangible piece of evidence found in a pre-Columbian context that seemed to offer undeniable proof of what many had long speculated, that Norse explorers from Greenland or Iceland had ventured further south along the North American coast than the well-documented settlement at Elance Ox Meadows in Newfoundland. The coin seemed to be a smoking gun, a lost possession of a Viking trader or explorer who had made direct contact with the indigenous peoples of what is now New England, centuries before Columbus set sail. The romantic image is powerful, a Norse longship appearing on the horizon, met by the ancestors of the Wabanaki people, with trade and cultural exchange following. This single coin could theoretically rewrite the history books, pushing the date of European contact in the United States back by nearly 400 years and suggesting a much more extensive Norse exploration of the continent. However, the true story of the Maine Penny is far more complex and reveals the meticulous, often cautious, nature of historical science. While the coin itself is genuine, the circumstances of its discovery and the nature of the site force a more nuanced interpretation. The Goddard site was not a small, isolated camp. It was a significant hub in a vast and sophisticated indigenous trade network that stretched across the continent. We know that goods like copper from Lake Superior and shells from the Gulf of Mexico traveled thousands of miles through these networks. The most widely accepted explanation among mainstream archaeologists is that the Norse coin likely arrived at the Goddard site not from a direct Norse visit to Maine, but through this very same intricate web of native trade. It could have been acquired by indigenous peoples in Newfoundland or Labrador who had contact with the Norse at Elance Ox Meadows. From there, over generations, it was passed from hand to hand, community to community, traveling south as a curiosity or a valuable item until it eventually reached Maine, long after the Norse had abandoned their North American settlements. In this scenario, the coin is still a remarkable testament to pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, but it speaks to the incredible reach of Native American trade routes rather than to a Norse expedition to New England. The debate hinges on a critical archaeological principle, context. While the coin was found at a pre-Columbian site, the specific layer it was discovered in, while dated to the 1300s, was heavily disturbed by later activity. This makes it difficult to state with absolute certainty that the coin was deposited there at the same time as the surrounding indigenous artifacts. It is a possibility, however remote, that a 17th century European colonist could have dropped an old Norse coin he carried as a curiosity, and that it then settled into an older layer. Most archaeologists discount this, but the slight uncertainty is a reminder of how complex interpreting the past can be. The Maine Penny, therefore, stands at a fascinating crossroads. It is either dramatic, direct evidence of Vikings in New England, or it is powerful, indirect evidence of the astonishing scale and efficiency of Native American commerce, capable of moving a rare object from the fjords of Norway to the forests of Maine over the course of a few centuries. Either way, its existence challenges a simplistic view of history. It reminds us that the ancient world was far more interconnected than we often assume, and that a single, silent object can hold within it echoes of epic journeys, whether across a stormy ocean or a vast and thriving continent. Yet from the dusty soil of Peru emerges a collection of relics that presents a challenge not to geology or timelines, but to the very narrative of life on Earth. In the 1960s, a local physician named Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquia was presented with a curious gift by a farmer, a smooth, dark andesite stone intricately carved with the image of what appeared to be an extinct fish. Intrigued, Dr. Cabrera began acquiring more of these stones, eventually amassing a collection of over 15,000, but these were no ordinary carvings. The Ica stones, as they became known, depict scenes so anachronistic and bizarre they seem ripped from the pages of a science fiction novel. On their polished surfaces, human figures are shown living alongside and even hunting dinosaurs like Triceratops and Stegosaurus. Others illustrate complex medical procedures, including detailed heart transplants and cesarean sections performed with startling precision. Some stones feature precise astronomical charts showing constellations and planets, while others map what look like lost continents. The implications were, of course, earth-shattering. If authentic, the stones would prove that an advanced human civilization possessing sophisticated medical knowledge and astronomical understanding coexisted with dinosaurs millions of years ago, utterly demolishing the foundations of modern paleontology, biology, and human history. Proponents of alternative theories seized upon them as the ultimate evidence for their ideas, from ancient astronaut visitors who shared advanced technology to the existence of a lost global civilization like Atlantis or Lemuria. The sheer volume of the collection added to its mystique, How could so many detailed carvings, all consistent in style and theme, be a hoax? The mystery, however, began to unravel when the source of the stones was investigated. The farmers who supplied them initially claimed they had been discovered in a secret cave, but under pressure from authorities, one farmer, Basilio Ashuya, eventually confessed. He stated that he and his family had carved the stones themselves using tools like a dental drill, and then aged them by baking them in donkey dung to create a patina. To demonstrate, he showed reporters how he could produce a new, ancient stone in a matter of days. Ashuya later recanted his confession, claiming he had lied to avoid prosecution for selling archaeological artifacts, which is illegal in Peru. This retraction gave believers a reason to cling to the stone's authenticity, arguing that the confession was made under duress. Why, then, do the Ica stones continue to captivate and be cited as evidence, even after a seemingly definitive confession? The answer lies in the powerful human desire for paradigms to be shattered. For those who feel that mainstream science is dogmatic or has overlooked crucial evidence, the stones represent a perfect rebellion. The confession can be dismissed as coerced, and the sheer scale and consistency of the collection are presented as proof that a simple farmer could not have possessed the knowledge or artistic skill to create them. Furthermore, some point to the existence of other, similar stones that were documented by Spanish colonists centuries earlier, suggesting a possible tradition of carving that Basilio Ashuya may have drawn upon or replicated, rather than invented wholesale. The enduring fascination with the Ica stones is less about the objects themselves and more about what they represent, a battle over who controls the narrative of the past. They serve as a Rorschach test for our beliefs. To a skeptic, they are a fascinating example of a modern myth, a lucrative cottage industry that preys on our fascination with the unknown. To a believer, they are tangible proof that our textbooks are wrong. This conflict highlights a deeper truth about historical mysteries. Sometimes the most compelling artifact is not the one that provides an answer, but the one that keeps a question vibrantly, stubbornly alive, forcing us to continually re-examine the line between fact, fiction, and the stories we choose to tell about our origins. While the Maine Penny offers a subtle hint of Norse wanderings, another North American artifact presents its claim in bold, undeniable script. In the late autumn of 1898, a Swedish immigrant farmer named Olof Ehrman was clearing trees on his land near the small town of Kensington, Minnesota. As he and his son worked to uproot a poplar tree, their attention was drawn to a large, flat stone tangled within the tree's root system. After prying it loose, they were astonished to find one face of the 200-pound slab covered in intricate carved symbols. To the eyes of their Scandinavian neighbors, the markings were immediately recognizable: runes, the ancient alphabet of the Vikings. This was the Kensington runestone, and the message it purported to carry would ignite a fierce debate that continues to this day. The inscription carved along the face and one side of the stone tells a harrowing story. Translated, it reads as a memo from the 14th century, dated 1362. It describes a party of 8 Swedes and 22 Norwegians on a voyage of exploration from Vinland, the Norse name for their settlements in North America further west. The text chillingly recounts that 10 of these men were killed during an attack, and it ends with a plea for rescue. If genuine, this single stone would not only confirm a Norse presence deep within the North American continent, but would also push the date of European exploration hundreds of years beyond the established timeline, placing Scandinavian adventurers in the heart of Minnesota a full 130 years before Columbus. The case for the runestone's authenticity initially seems compelling. Supporters point to the sheer physicality of the find. The stone was discovered firmly gripped by the roots of a poplar tree that experts estimated to be at least 40 years old, suggesting the stone had been in place for many decades before its discovery, seemingly ruling out a recent hoax by Ehrman or his contemporaries. Furthermore, the language and runic style used in the inscription became a central battleground. Early critics dismissed it as a modern forgery, arguing that the runes were a nonsensical mix from different time periods and regions. However, as scholarly understanding of medieval Scandinavian linguistics deepened throughout the 20th century, proponents found what they believed to be smoking guns. They identified what appeared to be linguistic peculiarities within the text-specific word forms, grammatical constructions, and even a unique dotted R rune that were consistent with 14th century Scandinavian dialects but were unknown to 19th century scholars or amateur rune carvers. How, they argued, could an uneducated Minnesota farmer in the 1890s have possessed such obscure linguistic knowledge? Yet, the case against the stone's authenticity is equally robust and draws from a wider historical context. The most significant hurdle is the complete absence of any other archaeological evidence. A party of 30 men spending enough time to carve a detailed message into a 200-pound rock would have left a trace. Where are their campfires, their tools, their weapons, or their graves? Despite extensive searches, no corroborating physical evidence of a 14th century Norse camp in Minnesota has ever been found. Linguistically, while supporters highlight convincing details, detractors point to equally troubling anachronisms. Some runic forms and words used on the stone appear to be influenced by modern Swedish dialects that would not have existed in the 14th century. The very phrasing of the text, some experts argue, feels too modern, more like a 19th century rendition of how an ancient explorer might write, rather than an authentic medieval document. This leads to the most plausible alternative explanation, that the runestone is a clever, heartfelt hoax crafted by Scandinavian immigrants. The late 19th century was a period of massive migration from Scandinavia to the American Midwest. These new Americans often faced prejudice and were eager to establish their place and legacy in their new homeland. Creating an artifact that wove their own heritage directly into the ancient soil of America would have been a powerful act of belonging. Olof Ehrman and his neighbors were part of a community steeped in Norse folklore and history. They were precisely the kind of people who would have had the motivation and the basic knowledge to create such an object. The hoax theory suggests that they crafted the stone not for financial gain, but for cultural pride, embedding it at the base of a young tree, knowing it would one day be discovered as proof of their people's deep-rooted claim to the land. The Kensington runestone, therefore, is more than just a rock with carved letters. It is a symbol of the complex relationship between history, identity, and evidence. It forces us to ask whether we are interpreting the past or projecting our present desires onto it. For those who believe, the stone is a lonely, courageous monument to forgotten explorers. For skeptics, it is a poignant, beautifully crafted piece of folk art, a testament to the dreams of immigrants seeking to plant their old world roots in new world soil. The stone itself remains silent, its true story locked within its granite face, challenging us to decide which narrative we find more compelling, a rewritten history of exploration or a touching story of human aspiration. Shifting our focus from carved stones and runic inscriptions to the world of cartography, we encounter an artifact that is not just a map, but a window into a lost geography that seems to defy everything we know about the age of exploration. In 1929, during the renovation of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, a group of historians made a stunning discovery. Tucked away in the palace's vast library, they found a gazelle skin parchment dating to the year 1513. It was a world map signed by an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis. The map itself was already a remarkable piece of work, showing the coastlines of Western Europe, Africa, and the Americas with surprising, though not perfect, accuracy for its time. But it was the southernmost portion of the map that would ignite a century of controversy and speculation. Below the Atlantic Ocean, the map depicted a landmass that, to many modern observers, bore a startling resemblance to the continent of Antarctica, but with one crucial and impossible difference. It appeared to be shown without its massive, mile-thick ice cap. The implications of this are profound. Modern science tells us that Antarctica has been buried under its immense ice sheet for millions of years, long before the emergence of any human civilization capable of mapping it. So how could a 16th century Ottoman admiral have charted a coastline that has not been visible since a prehistoric age? Proponents of the map's anomalous nature point to Piri Reis's own notes, which are inscribed directly on the parchment. He explicitly states that he did not create the map from original exploration, but compiled it from a multitude of source maps, some of which he describes as being very old, dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. The theory, therefore, is that Piri Reis had access to ancient source maps that were themselves copies of even older charts, drawn by a seafaring civilization with advanced knowledge of the world in a pre-glacial era. This hypothetical civilization, perhaps a precursor to known ancient cultures, would have possessed the technology and skill to map the world, including an ice-free Antarctica, tens of thousands of years ago. Their knowledge was then preserved in the great libraries of antiquity like Alexandria, and fragments of it survived long enough to be incorporated by Reis. The most detailed argument for this was put forward by historians like Charles Hapgood in his book, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings. Hapgood and his team, which even included a young Albert Einstein who wrote a supportive foreword, argued that the Piri Reis map displayed a level of spherical trigonometry and accurate longitudinal positioning that was far beyond the capabilities of 16th century navigators. They contended that the only way the southern landmass could be so accurately proportioned relative to Africa and South America was if the original cartographers were mapping from a point in the air, understanding the curvature of the Earth. For them, the map was not just a curiosity, it was evidence of a worldwide, technologically advanced civilization that vanished during the last ice age, leaving behind only fragments of its knowledge in the form of these ancient charts. However, the scientific and scholarly critique of this interpretation is extensive and challenges the theory on multiple fronts. The first and most significant argument is that the landmass identified as Antarctica might not be Antarctica at all. Critics, including many professional cartographers, point out that the map is filled with the artistic liberties and common errors of its era. The southern continent is seamlessly connected to South America, a geographical inaccuracy common in many maps of the time, which often depicted a great southern land, or terra australis, as a hypothetical counterbalance to the northern continents. This was a philosophical and artistic convention, not necessarily a precise survey. Furthermore, the coastline that looks like Antarctica could very well be a composite, distorted representation of the then uncharted southern coast of South America, blended with rumors and myths about lands further south. Without place names or any identifying features beyond a rough coastline, the identification remains highly speculative. The second major critique addresses the claim of advanced mathematical knowledge. Mainstream historians of cartography demonstrate that the map's accuracy is often overstated. While impressive for its time, it contains significant errors in distances and latitudes that are consistent with the navigational techniques available to a 16th century sailor like Piri Reis. The argument for the use of spherical trigonometry collapses when one considers that these alleged perfect calculations still resulted in a map that places Brazil under the equator incorrectly and misaligns the Caribbean islands. The map is a remarkable achievement of its own context, a compilation of Portuguese, Spanish, Arab, and perhaps earlier sources, but it does not require a lost super-civilization to explain its existence. It can be understood as the work of a brilliant compiler working with the best but still flawed and incomplete information available during the dawn of global exploration. The enigma of the Piri Reis map ultimately resides in the gap between what we see and what we know. It forces us to confront the power of projection both in cartography and in history. We look at an old, imperfect map and see the ghost of a coastline we recognize from modern satellite imagery, and our minds leap to fill the void with a dramatic narrative. The map's true significance may be more nuanced. It stands as a testament to the vast, interconnected web of knowledge that was circulating in the 16th century, a melting pot of Arabic, European, and possibly older Mediterranean geographical lore. Whether it contains a genuine, frozen memory of a world lost to time or is simply a beautiful and misunderstood product of its own era, the Piri Reis map continues to challenge us to question not only the secrets of the past but also the assumptions we bring to their interpretation. Now we turn from disputed maps and contested stones to a relic that is utterly unique, a book that has resisted every attempt to understand it for over half a millennium. Housed today in the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, the Voynich Manuscript is arguably the most famous unreadable book in the world. Its allure is immediate and powerful, a small, unassuming codex of about 240 vellum pages, filled from edge to edge with a flowing, unknown script that has never been seen anywhere else on Earth. The text, written left to right with apparent linguistic structure, is accompanied by a plethora of strange and beautiful illustrations that only deepen the mystery. These drawings are grouped into sections, delicate, unidentifiable plants with root systems unlike any known species, intricate astronomical charts featuring circular diagrams with suns, moons, and stars in unfamiliar constellations, bizarre biological sections showing tiny, naked female figures, often called nymphs, bathing in or connected by tubes and pipes to a complex fluid-filled system. Vessels, and finally, what appears to be a section of pharmaceutical recipes with drawings of jars and plant parts. The manuscript's known history begins in the early 17th century, when it was sent by an anonymous owner to the brilliant Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher in Rome in the hope that he could decipher it. Kircher, a man who claimed to be able to read Egyptian hieroglyphs, failed, and the book vanished for centuries, only to resurface in 1912 when a Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich purchased it from a Jesuit college in Italy. Voynich dedicated the rest of his life to trying to crack its code, and his name has been forever attached to the puzzle. Since then, the manuscript has passed through the hands of countless experts, including some of the 20th century's finest cryptographers. Teams from the United States National Security Agency, who broke Japanese and German codes during the Second World War, applied their most advanced analytical techniques to the Voynich text during the 1970s and 1980s. They emerged empty-handed. The script defies all known methods of code breaking. Statistical analysis shows it has a complex structure similar to natural languages, with word entropy and patterns that suggest it is not a random hoax, yet it correlates with no known tongue on the planet. This profound resistance to decryption has naturally spawned a universe of theories. Some propose it is an elaborate Renaissance-era hoax created to defraud a wealthy patron like Emperor Rudolf Roman II, who had a known interest in the occult. The hoax theory suggests the text is meaningless gibberish cleverly constructed to mimic language. However, the statistical properties of the text, which show patterns like Zipf's law found in genuine languages, make a simple hoax seem less likely. Others have suggested it is written in a highly sophisticated cipher, perhaps one that encodes a known language like Latin or Hebrew by substituting letters or words in an immensely complex way. More exotic theories posit it is the work of a lone genius who invented an entirely new language, or even that it is the product of an unknown earthly or extraterrestrial civilization. In recent years, a few controversial claims of decryption have emerged, adding new layers to the debate. One of the most prominent was put forward in 2017 by an academic historian and a computer scientist, who proposed that the manuscript is actually a treatise on women's health written in a coded form of Old Turkish. Their theory suggests the script is a form of phonetic shorthand, where each character represents a sound in the Turkish language, and the entire text is largely devoid of vowels. Using this method, they claim to have translated several words and phrases, such as identifying a term for a mother's primary ingredient in a recipe. However, this theory has been met with significant skepticism from the wider linguistic and cryptographic community. Critics point out that the translations provided are often speculative and that the method has not been applied consistently to produce a coherent, verifiable translation of a full page or even a complete paragraph. The enduring power of the Voynich Manuscript lies not in a potential solution, but in its perfect, impenetrable mystery. It is a locked room at the heart of the history of ideas. Is it a lost botanical encyclopedia from a forgotten culture, a coded alchemical text hiding the secret to the philosopher's stone, the private journal of someone speaking in a tongue no one else has ever shared? Each failed attempt to read it only adds to its stature. It represents the ultimate frontier of historical inquiry, a stark reminder that there are still artifacts that refuse to yield their secrets, sitting silently in a vault, challenging every generation to try again, to look deeper, and to wonder if some chapters of the human story are meant to remain forever closed. But how do you create a message so vast it can only be read by the gods, or perhaps by someone soaring high above the earth? This is the profound question posed by our next relic, a gallery of giants etched into the very skin of a desert. Far from the confines of libraries and shipwrecks, we journey to the high, arid plains of southern Peru, to the Pampas de Jumana. Here, spread across nearly 500 square kilometers of dark, stony desert floor, lies one of the world's most breathtaking and enigmatic art installations, the Nazca Lines. These are not carvings on stone, but geoglyphs designs created by removing the top layer of reddish-brown, iron oxide-coated pebbles to reveal the lighter, sand-colored earth beneath. This simple contrast has preserved these staggering images for nearly 2,000 years, in a region where it rains for less than an hour per year. The scale of the Nazca Lines is almost impossible to comprehend from the ground. Walking among them, you would see only shallow paths seeming scratches in the earth. It is only from the vantage point of an aircraft that their true majesty is revealed. They depict a stunning array of forms: a condor with a wingspan stretching 120 meters, a hummingbird with a long, delicate beak, a sinuous monkey with a spiraling tail, a spider, a pelican, a killer whale, and even what appears to be a humanoid figure nicknamed the astronaut. Alongside these zoomorphic and anthropomorphic figures are hundreds of straight lines that run for miles, perfectly geometric shapes like triangles and trapezoids, and immense spirals that seem to draw the eye towards their center. The sheer precision is staggering. Many of the lines are arrow-straight, even across miles of uneven terrain, and the proportions of the animal figures remain perfect, despite their creators having no way to view their work from above. This last point is the core of the mystery. Why would the Nazca people, who thrived in the region from around 100 before the Common Era to 800 of the Common Era, invest such immense, generations-spanning effort into creating art they could never fully appreciate? The most enduring and scientifically supported theory is that the lines served a deeply religious and astronomical purpose. Archaeologists like Johann Reinhard have proposed that the geoglyphs were ritual pathways walked by priests during ceremonies intended to summon the deities who controlled water, the most precious and scarce resource in the desert. The animal figures likely represented constellations or specific gods. The straight lines may have pointed towards water sources in the distant mountains or towards the rising and setting points of celestial bodies on the horizon during solstices and equinoxes, functioning as a massive agricultural and ceremonial calendar. In this view, the lines were not meant for human eyes to see from above, but for the eyes of the gods in the sky. By walking the paths and performing rituals on a scale worthy of deities, the Nazca people were attempting to communicate with and appease the powerful forces of nature. A more recent and compelling theory adds a fascinating sonic dimension to the ritualistic explanation. Researchers have discovered that the acoustic properties on the lines themselves are unique. The hard, flat desert surface acts as a sounding board. When you walk along the lines, particularly in the center of the large trapezoids, the sound of your footsteps and your voice creates distinct echoes and reverberations that are not present in the surrounding desert. This has led some scientists to suggest that the Nazca people may have used the geoglyphs as ceremonial plazas for rhythmic chanting and dancing, creating an immersive auditory experience designed to induce trance-like states in the participants. The combination of the vast visual scale, the rhythmic movement along the paths, and the powerful, amplified sound would have made these locations incredibly potent centers for spiritual connection, blurring the line between earth and heaven. Of course, the inability of the creators to see their work has also fueled more speculative theories. When the lines were widely publicized in the 20th century, they quickly became a cornerstone of the ancient astronaut hypothesis. Authors like Erich von Däniken famously proposed that the Nazca Lines were landing strips or navigational markers for extraterrestrial spacecraft. The immense flat trapezoids, he argued, could serve as runways, while the intricate animal figures were signals visible only to beings flying high above. While this idea captures the imagination, it is largely dismissed by archaeologists. The desert floor is soft and would not support the weight of a heavy aircraft, and the lines themselves are not perfectly smooth runways but are created by removing stones, leaving a surface that would be treacherous for landing. The ancient astronaut theory, while popular, is seen by most researchers as an underestimation of the ingenuity and spiritual sophistication of the Nazca culture. The true method of their construction, however, demonstrates that no aliens were needed, just remarkable human skill and simple technology. Experiments have shown that the Nazca people could have designed the lines using basic surveying techniques. By driving stakes into the ground at key points and using ropes to mark out the designs, they could have scaled up a small model drawn on a much smaller surface. The straight lines could have been created by lining up two or more posts on the horizon and walking towards them. The preservation of the lines for 2 millennia is due to the unique climate of the region. The lack of rain and wind, combined with a layer of sun-baked clay that helps stabilize the stones, has acted as a perfect natural conservator. The Nazca Lines stand not as a mystery of advanced technology, but as a testament to a society with a profound connection to its environment, a sophisticated understanding of geometry, and a collective will to create something monumental for their gods. They remind us that human belief can be one of the most powerful forces on Earth, capable of moving not just mountains but entire landscapes to send a message into the heavens. Moving from the vast desert canvases of the Nazca to an object of intense and intimate devotion, we encounter a relic that lies at the very intersection of faith, history, and science. Housed in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, the shroud is a long, rectangular piece of linen cloth, measuring approximately 14 feet in length by 3.5 feet wide. Its surface bears the faint, straw-colored, negative image of a man who appears to have suffered the torturous death of crucifixion. The image shows the front and back of a tall, well-proportioned male, with his hands folded over his groin, complete with wounds consistent with the biblical accounts of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. What appear to be scourge marks across the back and legs, puncture wounds at the wrists and feet, a gash in the side, and even lacerations around the head resembling those from a crown of thorns. For millions of Christians, this is not merely an ancient artifact. It is the actual burial cloth that wrapped the body of their Savior, a silent witness to the central event of their faith. The documented history of the shroud is a saga in itself, filled with intrigue and controversy. While some traditions suggest a much older journey through the Middle East and Constantinople, the shroud's clear historical record begins in 1354, when it surfaced in the small town of Liéry, France, in the possession of a French knight named Geoffroy de Charny. Its sudden appearance immediately sparked debate. The local bishop at the time, Henry de Poitiers, declared it a clever painting, a fraud designed to exploit the piety of pilgrims. Despite this early skepticism, the shroud changed hands among European nobility for centuries, eventually coming into the possession of the House of Savoy, which brought it to Turin in 1578, where it has remained ever since, surviving a devastating chapel fire in 1997 that threatened to destroy it. The modern scientific investigation of the Shroud of Turin began in earnest in the 20th century, transforming it from an object of veneration into a global laboratory. The pivotal moment arrived in 1978 when a team of American scientists, the Shroud of Turin Research Project, or STURP, was granted unprecedented access for 5 days of continuous around-the-clock examination. They subjected the cloth to a battery of tests using the most advanced technology of the era, including ultraviolet photography, infrared thermography, and X-ray fluorescence. What they discovered only deepened the mystery. They found no evidence of pigments, dyes, or brushstrokes. The image, they concluded, was not a painting. It resides only on the very topmost microfibers of the cloth, akin to a scorch, but one created without any signs of charring. It is a perfect photographic negative. When first photographed in 1898 by amateur photographer Secondo Pia, the negative plate revealed a startlingly detailed and positive likeness of a man, a discovery that shocked the world and launched the modern quest to understand the shroud's origins. This scientific puzzle seemed to reach a definitive conclusion in 1988. With the permission of the Vatican, small samples from a corner of the shroud were carefully removed and sent to 3 independent, world-renowned radiocarbon dating laboratories at the University of Oxford, the University of Arizona, and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. Using accelerator mass spectrometry, a highly accurate method for dating organic materials, all 3 labs independently arrived at strikingly similar results. Their collective finding, published in the prestigious journal Nature, dated the flax used to weave the linen cloth to between 1260 and 1390 of the Common Era, with a 95% confidence level. For many in the scientific community, the case was closed. The Shroud of Turin was a medieval creation, consistent with the time of its first documented appearance in France. Yet, far from settling the debate, the 1988 carbon dating ignited a new and fierce scientific controversy that continues to this day. Critics of the results point to several potential problems with the sample. They argue that the piece of cloth used for dating was taken from an edge of the shroud, an area that had been handled, mended, and potentially contaminated over the centuries. Most significantly, they highlight that the shroud survived a fire in 1532 that severely damaged it, melting the silver reliquary in which it was kept and scorching the cloth. It is theorized that this event could have introduced carbon-containing contaminants, such as soot or even bioplastic coatings from firefighting microbes, that would have skewed the radiocarbon date towards a much younger age. Some textile experts have also pointed to weaving patterns and traces of cotton in the sample area that are atypical of the main body of the shroud, suggesting the tested piece might have been part of a medieval repair, an invisible reweaving that was not representative of the entire cloth. Beyond the dating controversy lies the shroud's most enduring and profound enigma, the nature of the image itself. If it is not a painting, as Sturp concluded, then how was the image formed? Decades of research have failed to produce a perfect replication. The image has a 3-dimensional quality encoded within it. When the varying intensity of the image is read by a sophisticated device called a VP8 image analyzer, it translates into a credible 3-dimensional relief of a human body, something that does not occur with ordinary flat paintings or photographs. Theories for its formation range from the natural to the miraculous. Some scientists have proposed a Maillard reaction, a chemical interaction between amino acids in a decomposing body and the carbohydrates of the linen cloth, a process accelerated by heat, perhaps from the body itself. Others have suggested a very brief, intense burst of radiant energy, like a flash of light emanating from the body and causing a superficial dehydration and oxidation of the linen fibers. This theory, while unproven, is the only one that some researchers feel accounts for the precise, shallow depth of the image and its photographic negative characteristics. For believers, this energy burst is the divine light of the resurrection, a moment of transfiguration that left an indelible imprint on the cloth. The Shroud of Turin, therefore, remains an open case. It is a relic that challenges the limits of both our historical methods and our scientific understanding, a silent testament that continues to ask more questions than it provides answers, holding its secret closely across the centuries. While the Shroud of Turin presents an intimate and deeply personal mystery, our next relic offers a puzzle on an entirely different scale, one of immense weight and geometric perfection scattered across a tropical landscape. Deep in the verdant jungles and river deltas of southern Costa Rica, a remarkable archaeological discovery began to surface in the 1930s, quite literally, as the United Fruit Company cleared vast tracts of land for banana plantations. As bulldozers pushed back the dense foliage, workers began to uncover strange spherical stones, some partially buried, others sitting fully exposed on the surface. These were not ordinary boulders weathered by time. They were stunningly precise spheres, carved with a degree of accuracy that seemed impossible for a pre-Columbian society. The local name for the area, the Diquis Delta, soon became associated with the artifacts themselves, the stone spheres of Costa Rica. To date, over 300 of these spheres have been documented, ranging in size from a few centimeters in diameter to colossal spheres over 2.5 meters across, weighing an astonishing 16 tons or more, the weight of several elephants. The material is primarily gabbro, a hard, igneous rock similar to basalt, though some are made from coquina, a softer limestone-like material formed from shell fragments. The most extraordinary aspect is their near-flawless geometry. Many of the spheres are so perfectly round that when measured with modern tools, their diameter varies by less than a centimeter from any given point. The surface was often painstakingly polished to a smooth finish, a testament to the incredible skill and patience of their creators. The spheres are attributed to the complex chiefdom societies that flourished in the region from around 400 of the Common Era until the Spanish conquest in the 16th century, with the peak of sphere production likely occurring after 1000 of the Common Era. The primary mystery surrounding these spheres is not just how they were made, but why and how they were moved. The manufacturing process, while not fully understood, can be reconstructed through archaeological evidence and experimentation. The most plausible method involved a combination of skillful fracturing, meticulous pecking, grinding, and polishing. First, a large boulder of the desired material was selected. Using heat-building fires against the rock and then dousing it with water to create thermal shock, the makers could induce cracks and shape a rough block. Then, using stone hammers made of a harder material, likely nephrite or another durable stone, they would have painstakingly pecked away at the surface, gradually rounding the form. Finally, the sphere would be ground and polished using sand and water, perhaps with leather or coarse plant fibers, over a period that could have spanned months or even years. This was a monumental undertaking, a communal project requiring specialized knowledge passed down through generations. The transportation of these massive objects is an equally daunting puzzle. The quarries for the gabbro spheres have been identified in the foothills of the Talamanca Mountains, dozens of kilometers from where many of the spheres were ultimately placed. How were multi-ton stones moved through dense, mountainous jungle and across rivers? The most widely accepted theory involves a sophisticated system of log rollers, levers, and ramps, combined with the sheer muscle power of a large, organized workforce. Using ropes made from durable local vines or fibers, teams could have rolled the spheres on wooden logs, constantly moving the rear log to the front in a continuous path. This method, while incredibly labor-intensive, is feasible and has been demonstrated with replicas. It speaks to a highly organized society capable of mobilizing and coordinating labor for projects that served a greater communal purpose. But what was that purpose? The arrangement of the spheres provides the greatest clues and the most room for speculation. They were rarely found isolated. Often, they were placed in groups, lining the approaches to the houses of important chiefs or forming geometric patterns in central plazas. Some of the most famous alignments, now disturbed by time and agricultural activity, suggest possible astronomical significance. At certain key sites, groups of spheres were positioned to align with celestial events, such as the rising and setting of the sun during solstices or the paths of significant stars. This theory posits the spheres as a colossal astronomical calendar, anchoring the cycles of the cosmos to the power and territory of the ruling elite. Another compelling theory views the spheres primarily as symbols of social and political power. In the hierarchical chiefdom societies of the Dikwis, the ability to commission, create, and display these immense objects would have been a clear declaration of status, wealth, and authority. A larger and more perfectly formed sphere, or a complex arrangement of multiple spheres, would signify a more powerful and influential chief. They may have served as territorial markers, delineating the land of one chief from another, or as monuments to commemorate important lineages, alliances, or victories. Their perfect, unyielding form could have represented stability, eternity, and the enduring power of the ruling class. Some researchers have even proposed a more spiritual interpretation, suggesting the spheres were physical representations of celestial bodies. The sun, the moon, or even the full moon, connecting the earthly power of the chief to the divine order of the heavens. The truth likely incorporates all these elements. The stone spheres of Costa Rica were probably multifunctional. At once astronomical tools, political statements, and sacred objects, their meaning as layered and complex as the society that brought them into being. They stand as a silent, powerful testament to a sophisticated culture whose understanding of geometry, community organization, and cosmic order was literally set in stone, leaving behind a landscape of perfect forms whose deepest secrets remain gently guarded by the jungle. Leaving behind the ancient riddles of Costa Rican stone spheres, we confront a monument from our own era that was designed specifically to be a puzzle for the future, a relic whose brief existence sparked intense debate and ended in sudden, violent destruction. In 1979, in a remote field in Elbert County, Georgia, a curious structure appeared seemingly overnight. A local banker, acting as an intermediary for a mysterious, well-dressed man who called himself only R.C. Christian, had overseen the construction of what would become known as the Georgia Guidestones. This was not a crude stone circle or a buried artifact. It was a modern megalith, a complex of 6 granite slabs weighing over 110 tons in total, arranged with astronomical precision. The centerpiece was 4 massive upright stones, each bearing a message in a different ancient and modern language: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. A capstone lay across the top, and a smaller central pillar acted as a gnomon for a crude sundial and featured a small hole aligned with the North Star. The true mystery, however, was inscribed on the granite faces: 10 guidelines or precepts for humanity. They were stark and provocative. The first guideline urged, maintain humanity under 500,000,000 in perpetual balance with nature. Another advised, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Others called for the unification of humanity under a living new language and to rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. The monument's purpose, as stated in a nearby granite ledger, was to function as a compass, calendar, and clock, but its message was clearly intended as a blueprint, a set of instructions for survivors of a future global catastrophe who would need to rebuild civilization from the ground up. The anonymity of its creator, R.C. Christian, a name widely believed to be a pseudonym inspired by the founder of the Rosicrucian order, Christian Rosencreutz, immediately fueled speculation. Who had the resources and the motive to erect such a permanent, expensive, and controversial monument in the American countryside? The theories surrounding the Guidestone's origins and intent were as varied as the languages on its face. For some, it was a noble humanitarian project. Proponents argued that the guidelines, while severe, were a rational response to the existential threats of overpopulation, environmental degradation, and nuclear war that defined the late Cold War era. They saw R.C. Christian as a forward-thinking philanthropist or a group of intellectuals who wanted to leave behind a durable message of sustainability and reason, a warning against the very forces that could lead to societal collapse. The multilingual aspect was seen as a hopeful gesture toward a unified human future. In this view, the Guidestones were a modern-day equivalent of the warnings carved on ancient Egyptian obelisks, meant to guide future generations away from the mistakes of the past. A far more sinister interpretation, however, quickly took root, particularly among conservative and Christian groups. They saw the guidelines not as benevolent advice but as a dystopian manifesto. The call to reduce the global population to 500 million was viewed as a genocidal prescription, echoing the fears of elitist eugenics movements. The suggestion to guide reproduction for fitness and diversity was interpreted as a call for controlled breeding. The appeal for a new global language and a world court was seen as a blueprint for a tyrannical one-world government, an attack on national sovereignty and individual freedom. For these critics, the Guidestones were not a warning against apocalypse but a celebration of it, a monument erected by a shadowy, perhaps occult, elite who envisioned themselves as the architects of a new world order built upon the ashes of the old. This interpretation transformed the quiet Georgia field into a pilgrimage site for conspiracy theorists and a target for protests. The mystery deepened with the monument's eventual fate. For over 4 decades, the Guidestones stood as a physical embodiment of this debate, a Rorschach test in granite where visitors could project their deepest hopes and fears for humanity's future. Then, in the early morning hours of July 6, 2022, a security camera captured a sedan pulling up to the site. An explosion ripped through the air, severely damaging one of the upright slabs. Later that day, authorities, deeming the structure unsafe, demolished the remainder of the monument. The act of destruction was as enigmatic as the creation itself. While a suspect was eventually arrested and claimed the destruction was intended to expose a deep-state satanic conspiracy, the full story remains unclear. The swift demolition by the county, rather than an attempt to preserve or repair the historically significant site, further fueled speculation among those who believed the authorities were complicit in silencing a controversial message. The legacy of the Georgia Guidestones is therefore complex. Were they an elaborate, decades-long prank, a piece of land art designed to provoke conversation, a sincere, if chilling, attempt to secure a legacy of wisdom, or a genuine monument to a dark and secret ideology? Their physical erasure has not ended the debate. If anything, it has amplified it, transforming the stones from a tangible object into a purely ideological symbol. They force us to confront uncomfortable questions about authority, sustainability, and who has the right to dictate the future of our species. Unlike the prehistoric relics we've examined, the Guidestones came with a manual, but the instructions were so open to interpretation that they ultimately revealed more about our own fractured present than they did about any possible future. They stand, now only in memory and photographs, as a stark reminder that the most puzzling relics are not always the oldest, but sometimes those created with the specific intention of speaking to an age they would never see. Descending from the human-scale mysteries of the Georgia Guidestones, we now plunge into the truly abyssal depths of time, to an era so ancient it defies human comprehension. In the mineral-rich layers of South Africa's Transvaal supergroup, miners excavating Precambrian rock have occasionally unearthed curious objects that seem to whisper of an impossible past. These are the Klerksdorp spheres, small, rounded objects, often no larger than a walnut or a fist, composed of a bluish steel metal called pyrite or fool's gold. At first glance, they might be mistaken for natural mineral nodules, but a closer inspection reveals a feature that has sparked decades of intense speculation. Many of these spheres are encircled by 2 or 3 perfectly parallel grooves, running neatly around their equator like the seams on a baseball. The real shock, however, comes from their age. The rock strata from which they are extracted are reliably dated to be an astonishing 2.8 billion years old. To put that into perspective, this is a time when the only life on Earth was single-celled organisms, simple bacteria and archaea thriving in a primordial ocean. The idea of a tool using civilization existing in this primordial world is, according to everything we know about evolution, a scientific impossibility. For those who argue for an anomalous origin, these grooves are the entire case. They appear too straight, too symmetrical, and too deliberately placed to be the product of random geological chance. Proponents suggest that the spheres are manufactured artifacts, perhaps ball bearings for some vast, unknown piece of machinery, or components of a sophisticated technological device from a civilization so ancient that every other trace of it has been erased by billions of years of tectonic activity and erosion. The very material, pyrite, is a hard, dense metal that could theoretically be worked and shaped. The narrative is as compelling as it is staggering. It posits that the rise and fall of intelligent life on Earth may not be a singular event, but a cycle that has occurred before, leaving behind only the most durable fragments as clues to a history lost to deep time. This theory forces us to confront the possibility that our own civilization might just be one chapter in a much longer and far more mysterious story of life on this planet. Geologists and materials scientists, however, offer a far more terrestrial, yet equally fascinating explanation. They identify the Klerksdorp spheres as perfect examples of a common natural phenomenon known as pyrite concretions. Concretions form when a mineral, in this case pyrite, precipitates from a water solution and cements sediment particles around a central nucleus, which could be a tiny fossil, a grain of sand, or even a fragment of shell. Over immense periods, these concretions grow in concentric layers, much like a pearl forming around a grain of sand inside an oyster. The process is not always perfectly smooth. Variations in the surrounding sediment and the chemistry of the mineral-rich water can cause the concretion to form in a series of layered bumps or rings. When such a concretion is later subjected to the immense heat and pressure of metamorphism being buried deep within the Earth's crust, the softer sedimentary layers surrounding the hard pyrite ball can be compressed and squeezed, sometimes creating the appearance of grooves or ridges on the sphere's surface. The most compelling natural argument addresses the famed parallel grooves directly. Researchers have demonstrated that the distinctive ridges are not grooves carved into the sphere, but are actually raised ridges on the sphere. They are the result of a specific crystalline growth pattern. Pyrite is an isotropic mineral, meaning it has a cubic crystal structure. As the concretion formed, the pyrite crystals grew in an organized, layered fashion. Subsequent metamorphic pressure can cause the crystal structure to recrystallize and align along certain planes of weakness, accentuating these layered rings and giving them their remarkably straight and parallel appearance. It is a stunning example of nature's ability to create what looks like intelligent design through purely physical and chemical processes. What we perceive as manufactured precision is actually the outcome of predictable, albeit complex, geological forces operating over billions of years. The debate surrounding the Klerksdorp spheres ultimately hinges on a fundamental conflict between perception and process. Our human brains are hardwired to recognize patterns, especially those that resemble things we have created ourselves. This tendency, known as pareidolia, leads us to see faces in clouds and messages in random static. When we encounter an object with symmetrical grooves, our immediate association is with human craftsmanship. Science, however, requires us to look beyond that initial impression and investigate the mechanisms that could produce such an object without intelligent intervention. In this case, the geological explanations are robust, well-documented, and consistent with our understanding of mineralogy and metamorphic rock formation. The spheres do not require a lost civilization to explain their existence. They are a testament to the incredible and often surprisingly orderly, creative power of the Earth itself over spans of time that are almost ungraspable. Yet, the allure of the anomaly persists, a powerful reminder that some of the greatest mysteries are not about what is out there, but about how we interpret the world right beneath our feet. Our journey into the ancient and the anomalous now takes us to the banks of the Mureș River in Romania, where a discovery was made that seems to fuse the prehistoric with the industrial in a way that is profoundly disorienting. The story begins in 1974, when construction workers were excavating a site near the town of Aiud. Digging down about 10 meters or 35 feet through layers of sand and gravel, they unearthed a trove of bones that were soon identified as belonging to an extinct mastodon, a massive elephant-like creature that roamed the Earth during the Pleistocene epoch, which ended roughly 11,700 years ago. Among these ancient bones, however, was something that should not have been there, a heavy, wedge-shaped object made of metal. This object, now known as the Aiud wedge or the Aiud artifact, was about 20 centimeters long, 12 centimeters wide, and 7 centimeters thick, with a concavity in its center and two perfectly round drilled holes. It was covered in a thick layer of black oxide. Initially thought to be a stone axe head, it was sent for analysis to the Archaeological Institute of Cluj-Napoca. To the astonishment of the researchers, when the crust was carefully removed, the metal beneath was revealed to be an alloy composed primarily of aluminum, a metal that requires a highly advanced and energy-intensive industrial process to produce. Conventional history tells us that aluminum was not isolated as an element until 1825, and it wasn't produced in any significant quantity until the late 19th century. Finding a refined aluminum object in the same geological layer as mastodon bones was, on its face, as impossible as finding a smartphone in a pharaoh's tomb. The implications of this discovery are staggering. If the wedge is genuinely contemporaneous with the mastodon bones, it suggests the presence of a technologically advanced civilization in a period when early humans were only just beginning to work with simple stone tools. This would not merely adjust our timeline of human technological development, it would shatter it completely. Proponents of this view point to the depth of the find as crucial evidence. The artifact was reportedly encased in a layer of hardened sand, suggesting it had lain undisturbed for millennia, sealed away from any potential modern contamination. For those who support the artifact's authenticity, the Aiud wedge stands as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for a lost chapter in human history, a relic from a time when a forgotten culture might have possessed knowledge that was lost for thousands of years. However, as with many such perplexing finds, a more mundane and scientifically grounded explanation has emerged that carefully picks apart this extraordinary claim. The central pillar of the skeptical argument focuses on the geology of the find site itself. The area around Aiud is part of the Transylvanian Basin, a region with a complex history of sedimentation from the Mureș River. Rivers are dynamic forces, constantly eroding, depositing, and redepositing material from different time periods. A layer of sand 10 meters deep does not necessarily represent a single, sealed moment in time. It can be the result of many separate depositional events over a long period. It is entirely plausible that the mastodon bones, which are indeed ancient, were deposited in one era, and the aluminum wedge found its way into the same general area through completely different, much more recent processes. So, if the wedge is not ancient, what is it? The most convincing theory identifies it as a piece of modern industrial equipment. The object's specific shape and the presence of the two drilled holes are highly suggestive. Experts in heavy machinery have pointed out that the Aod wedge bears a striking resemblance to a tooth from a large excavator or a bulldozer's bucket, used for digging and earth moving. Such teeth are designed to be replaceable and are often secured with pins through precisely the kind of holes seen on the artifact. This theory provides a simple and logical explanation. A piece of excavation equipment broke off and was lost during mining or construction work in the 19th or early 20th century. Over time, it sank into the soft, wet sand near the riverbank. The natural processes of sedimentation and the constant activity of the river could then have buried it to a significant depth, eventually placing it in close proximity to the much older mastodon bones purely by coincidence. The black oxide layer is consistent with aluminum that has been buried in a wet, anoxic environment for a few decades, not millennia. The debate over the Aod wedge perfectly encapsulates the ongoing tension between dramatic historical revisionism and cautious archaeological science. It forces us to consider the difference between association and provenience. Just because two objects are found near each other does not automatically mean they are from the same time period. Archaeology relies on the principle of context, and in a geologically complex site like a riverbank, that context can be easily disturbed and misinterpreted. The Aod wedge remains a fascinating puzzle, not because it definitively proves the existence of a prehistoric aluminum industry, but because it demonstrates how easily our desire for monumental discoveries can lead us to connect dots that nature may have placed side by side entirely by accident. It stands as a cautionary tale, reminding us that sometimes the most mysterious artifact is not a message from a lost world, but simply a piece of our own modern world that has fallen through the cracks of time. But in the quiet depths of a 19th century Austrian coal mine, a discovery was made that seemed to offer a metallic, tangible challenge to our understanding of deep time, one that fit perfectly in the palm of a hand. In 1885, at the Wolfsegg coal mine in the Vöcklerbruck region of Austria, a worker named Riddle was breaking apart a large block of tertiary-era coal, destined for the furnaces of the local steelworks, when something heavy and unexpected fell out and clattered onto the floor. It was a cube-like object, slightly convex on two of its sides, with a deep groove running around its center. Made of iron and weighing just over 700 grams, it was immediately curious. The mine's director, upon examining the find, noted its strangely artificial appearance and decided to donate it to the Heimathaus Museum in Vöcklerbruck, where it was labeled the Wolfsegg iron, and later became popularly, if inaccurately, known as the Salzburg cube. The profound mystery of the object lay in its context. The coal seam from which it was extracted was reliably dated to the Tertiary period, a geological epoch spanning from roughly 66 million to 2.6 million years ago. This was a time when mastodons and early primates roamed the Earth, but millions of years before the emergence of any hominid species capable of smelting metal. If this iron cube was indeed a manufactured object, its presence inside a solid block of coal that formed over vast eons was an impossibility that defied every known principle of human evolution and geology. The initial scientific analysis conducted by Dr. Adolf Gerlt of the University of Bonn in 1886 added another layer of intrigue. He reported that the object was composed of forged steel, a specific alloy of iron and carbon that requires sophisticated, high-temperature metallurgical knowledge to produce. This finding seemed to push the envelope of the impossible even further, suggesting not just metalworking but advanced steel production in a prehistoric age. The most compelling explanation, and the one most widely accepted by mainstream science, offers a cosmic origin story for the curious cube. The object was subjected to more detailed analysis in the 1960s at the Vienna Natural History Museum. Using advanced techniques like electron beam microanalysis, researchers discovered that the iron contained unexpected traces of nickel and cobalt. This specific chemical signature is the fingerprint of a particular type of meteorite known as an iron meteorite, which originates from the cores of shattered asteroids. These celestial bodies are naturally composed of an iron-nickel-cobalt alloy. The theory posits that the Wolf's Egg iron is not a man-made artifact at all, but a fragment of a meteorite that fell to Earth during the Tertiary period, landing in the swampy, vegetative environment that would, over millions of years of immense pressure and heat, compress into the coal seam where it was found. The seemingly artificial groove around its center could be a natural feature, perhaps a seam where two different crystalline structures within the meteorite met, a scar from its violent journey through the atmosphere, or even the result of pressure and geological shifting within the coal bed itself over millions of years. However, a third, more prosaic possibility exists, one that bridges the gap between the natural and the industrial. The object's discovery in the late 19th century places it squarely in the midst of the Industrial Revolution, a time of intense mining activity. Skeptics point to the very feature that makes it look artificial, the central groove, as a potential clue to its modern origin. They propose that the cube could be a piece of mining equipment, specifically a breaker block or a pivot point from heavy mining machinery. Such components, made of cast iron, were commonly used in mining operations during the 1800s. The scenario is easy to imagine. A piece of equipment breaks off during drilling or excavation and falls into a pile of loose coal. Over time, through the constant movement and compaction of the coal, this heavy metal object becomes pressed into the center of a larger block, giving the false appearance of having been encased during the coal's formation millions of years earlier. This explanation accounts for the object's composition and shape without requiring a rewrite of human history, attributing its mysterious context to a simple case of modern contamination misinterpreted as ancient provenance. The enduring fascination with the Wolf's Egg iron lies in its stubborn resistance to a single, definitive classification. It is a Rorschach test of an artifact. For those inclined to believe in lost civilizations or advanced prehistoric knowledge, it remains a tantalizing piece of evidence, a metallic anomaly that hints at a forgotten industrial age. For scientists, it is a fascinating example of how a natural object, a meteorite, can be shaped by geological forces into a form that perfectly mimics human craftsmanship. And for historians of industry, it is a potential relic of their own era, a humble piece of mining hardware that found its way into the wrong layer of time. Unlike many other puzzling relics, the Wolf's Egg iron does not demand a dramatic revision of history. Instead, it presents us with a set of equally plausible narratives, each rooted in a different aspect of reality: the cosmic, the geological, and the industrial. It reminds us that the past is not always a clear story waiting to be read, but sometimes a puzzle where the pieces can be assembled in more than one way, and the true answer depends entirely on which clues we choose to prioritize. Moving from the industrial mysteries of the Wolf's Egg iron, we venture into the realm of the extraterrestrial with an artifact whose image is far more famous than its controversial history. The so-called Lolodov plate is a mysterious stone disk that emerged into the public eye in the late 20th century, primarily through the work of ufologist Erich von Däniken. The plate is typically presented as a flat, circular stone, its surface covered in a spiral of intricate, swirling grooves. At the center of this spiral is the image that has captivated believers: a large-eyed, large-headed being with a slender body, a depiction that bears a striking and uncanny resemblance to the modern archetype of an alien gray. Next to this figure is an object that looks undeniably like a classic flying saucer, a disc-shaped craft resting on the ground. The story attached to the plate is that it was discovered in Nepal by a Polish professor named Lolodov sometime before the Second World War. who allegedly traded a British army coat for it with a local tribe that claimed it was a record of their ancestors, the Dropa, who came from the stars. The narrative is a powerful one, weaving together ancient astronauts, a hidden Himalayan tribe, and a physical artifact that seems to provide tangible proof. For proponents, the Lolodov plate is a clear and deliberate depiction of an extraterrestrial encounter, carved in stone centuries or even millennia ago. They argue that the precision of the grey alien figure is too specific to be a coincidence, suggesting that the artist was documenting a real event, a close observation of a being and its technology that was so profound it became the central myth of a culture. This interpretation positions the plate as a keystone in the ancient astronaut theory, a piece of evidence that connects the dots between global myths of star beings and a singular historical reality. However, when subjected to even basic archaeological scrutiny, the story of the Lolodov plate completely unravels. The most significant problem is the complete and total lack of verifiable provenance. There are no official records of its discovery, no archaeological documentation, and no known photographs of the object in situ. The Polish professor Lolodov has never been conclusively identified, and his story exists only in the retellings of ufologists. The plate itself has never been examined by mainstream archaeologists or geologists to determine its age, mineral composition, or the methods used to create its carvings. It exists almost entirely as a series of photographs, divorced from any physical context that could be scientifically analyzed. This absence of a chain of custody or professional examination is a classic red flag in the world of artifacts, immediately casting overwhelming doubt on its claimed antiquity. The most compelling evidence against the plate's authenticity lies in the details of its design. Critics and skeptics point out that the alien grey depicted is not some ancient, stylized representation. It is a perfect match for the specific iconography that emerged in Western popular culture during the mid-20th century, particularly after the famous Betty and Barney Hill abduction case in 1961. The large, hairless head, the enormous black eyes, the small nose and mouth, this exact representation of aliens was virtually non-existent in art or folklore before the 1950s. Similarly, the flying saucer is not a vague, symbolic object. It is the stereotypical saucer with a domed top that became a staple of science fiction films and UFO reports in the post-World War II era. The coincidence is simply too great. It is far more likely that the plate is a modern creation, crafted specifically to appeal to the growing fascination with UFOs and ancient astronauts, than it is that an ancient Nepalese artist perfectly predicted the dominant alien imagery of the late 1900s. The prevailing theory among researchers is that the Lolodov plate is an example of tourist art or a deliberate forgery. The region where it was supposedly found has a long history of producing beautiful and intricate handicrafts for sale to travelers. Creating a mysterious, ancient artifact adorned with sensational imagery would be a sure way to attract attention and fetch a high price from a wealthy, credulous tourist, much like the Ica stones in Peru. The name Lolodov itself may be a fabrication, designed to sound exotic and lend an air of academic legitimacy to the object. The plate's enduring presence in ufology literature, despite the overwhelming evidence against it, highlights a key aspect of the field. The power of a compelling image can often outweigh a complete lack of factual support. It serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of provenance and the need for critical thinking, reminding us that in the search for evidence of the extraordinary, we must first ensure that the evidence itself is genuine. Yet another metallic mystery, this time emerging from the cold, stone-hard embrace of a Scottish quarry, seems to echo the profound puzzle of the London hammer. In the year 1844, within the Kingudi quarry near the town of Oturmachdi, workmen were tasked with extracting large blocks of solid sandstone from a deep bed. As they worked, one laborer's tool struck something unexpected. Embedded within a block of the stone which was destined for construction was a curious object, an ordinary-looking hammer, but one that was completely imprisoned within the rock itself. The workmen, astonished, carefully chiseled away the surrounding stone to free the artifact. The hammer's wooden handle was partially decomposed, but the iron head remained intact, and it was the stone itself that presented the impossible riddle. The quarry's sandstone bed was part of the Devonian age-old red sandstone formation, a geological layer that was firmly dated to a period between 360 million and 410 million years ago, a time when the first amphibians were just beginning to crawl onto land, and hundreds of millions of years before the first human ancestors would appear. Much like its Texan counterpart, the Kingudi hammer became an instant icon for those challenging established scientific narratives. The argument for its anomalous nature hinges on the same fundamental premise, the idea that the stone matrix had formed around the object, sealing it in place over an immense geological timescale. If this were true, the implications would be nothing short of revolutionary, suggesting the presence of intelligent, tool-using beings in an era that predates the dinosaur age. For creationist thinkers, particularly those who advocate for a young Earth interpretation of geology, artifacts like the Kingudi hammer are seen as definitive proof that the standard geological column, with its billions of years, is fundamentally flawed. They argue that such out-of-place artifacts are evidence of a much more recent creation, their presence in ancient rock layers pointing to a catastrophic global flood that rapidly deposited these strata and encased human tools within them only a few thousand years ago. The scientific and geological community, however, approaches the Kingudi hammer with a different set of tools, focusing on the complex and often misunderstood processes of rock formation. Their explanation centers on the concept of a concretion. Sandstone, while hard, is a porous material through which mineral-rich water can percolate. If an iron object like a hammer lost by a 19th-century quarry worker falls into a crevice or is buried in loose sand at the base of a quarry face, it can act as a nucleus. Over time, dissolved minerals in the groundwater, particularly iron oxides and silica, can precipitate out and cement the surrounding sand grains together, forming a hard, stone-like concretion around the object. This process does not require millions of years. It can occur over a matter of decades or centuries, especially in an environment like a wet quarry where water is constantly moving through the sediment. From this perspective, the hammer is not millions of years old, but the concretion that formed around it is a convincing mimic of the much older, naturally formed bedrock from which it was extracted. A closer examination of the specific context at the Kingudi quarry adds further weight to this natural explanation. Quarries are dynamic, human-altered landscapes. The hammer could easily have been dropped or discarded by a worker in the 1700s or 1800s, falling into a pile of debris or a crack in the exposed rock face. Subsequent quarrying activity, including blasting and the removal of overlying layers, could have disturbed the area, allowing the hammer to settle deeper and become covered. The constant percolation of rainwater laden with minerals from the freshly exposed stone would then have begun the rapid process of concretion formation. The resulting rock shell, while hard, would be geologically distinct from the surrounding consolidated Devonian sandstone that formed over millions of years under immense pressure. The solid rock described by the discoverers may have been a very hard, well-cemented concretion that simply appeared identical to the ancient bedrock to the untrained eye. The enduring debate over the Kingudi hammer, much like that surrounding the London hammer, is a powerful illustration of how the same piece of evidence can be interpreted through entirely different lenses. It pits a literal, face-value observation against a mechanistic understanding of geological processes. For those who champion the artifact's authenticity, it represents a crack in the edifice of established science, a stubborn anomaly that demands a radical rethinking of history. For geologists, it is a fascinating example of how nature can create seemingly impossible scenarios through well-understood, if slow-moving, chemical and physical laws. The hammer itself is likely a simple tool from a more recent past, but its story forces us to confront a critical question at the heart of all historical inquiry. When we uncover an object that seems to defy explanation, do we question the entire framework of our knowledge, or do we search for a more nuanced understanding of the processes that could have brought it to our attention? The Kingudi hammer offers no easy answer, standing instead as a silent, ironclad reminder that the past is always more complex than it first appears. From the quarries of Scotland, we travel to the heart of New England, where another artifact emerged from solid stone with a claim that seemed to reset the clock on human artistry. In June of 1852, in the town of Dorchester, Massachusetts, workmen were blasting rock at Meeting House Hill to prepare the ground for new construction. The technique involved drilling holes into the bedrock, packing them with explosives, and detonating them to break the stone into manageable pieces. After one particularly powerful blast, as the dust settled and workers moved in to clear the debris, they made a startling discovery. Among the shattered fragments of ancient Roxbury pudding stone, a dense conglomerate rock formation, lay an object that was clearly out of place. It was a bell-shaped, vase-like object, intricately crafted and torn in half by the force of the explosion. This artifact, which would become known as the Dorchester pot, was meticulously described in a contemporary report from the Scientific American magazine. It stood about 4.5 inches high, was composed of a silver-colored zinc alloy, and was inlaid with exquisite decorations of silver. The motifs were floral and elegant, depicting a finely wrought vine encircling the base and a beautiful 6-petaled flower on its side. The craftsmanship was undeniable, suggesting a level of skill and aesthetic sensibility that seemed utterly incongruous with its reported context. The key claim, which sent ripples of astonishment through the scientific community of the day, was that this metallic vase had been blown out of the solid bedrock, a layer of pudding stone that geologists dated to an incredibly ancient Precambrian era, estimated at over 600 million years old. If true, this would place a sophisticated, man-made object in an epoch before complex life had even begun to crawl on the planet. The implications of such a find are, of course, staggering. Proponents of the artifact's anomalous nature argue that it represents a clear case of an out-of-place artifact, or OOP art. For them, the Dorchester pot is a solitary survivor from a vastly distant epoch, a relic from a time when an advanced, perhaps non-human, civilization existed on Earth. The intricate inlay work, combining zinc and silver, points to a knowledge of metallurgy that simply should not exist in such a deep stratum of geological time. This interpretation forces a radical reconsideration of Earth's history, suggesting that the rise of intelligent, tool-making beings may not be a unique, linear event but a cycle that has occurred before, with nearly all evidence scoured away by the immense passage of time. The pot, in this view, is a silent, metallic whisper from a world we can scarcely imagine. However, a more grounded and widely accepted explanation scrutinizes the circumstances of the discovery itself. The primary challenge to the artifact's antiquity comes from the very method of its unearthing, dynamite. The use of high explosives is not a precise archaeological technique. The blast would have shattered the surrounding rock and violently displaced material from different layers. Skeptics propose a far more plausible scenario. The most compelling theory is that the Dorchester pot is not an ancient relic at all, but a perfectly Victorian-era object, specifically a candlestick holder or a decorative vase from the early 1800s. In this scenario, the object was not encased in solid rock for eons, but was simply lying on the ground surface or buried in shallow, recent soil above the bedrock. The tremendous force of the explosion could have easily thrown this relatively lightweight metal object downward, where it became lodged or embedded in the freshly fractured rubble of the ancient pudding stone. To the workmen clearing the debris moments later, it would have appeared as if the vase had come from within the rock itself, a classic case of misinterpreting a post-blast context. This theory is heavily supported by the object's design. The floral and vine motifs are not some mysterious prehistoric language of form. They are characteristic of the popular Victorian art styles of the early to mid-19th century. The combination of a zinc alloy body with silver inlay was a common and affordable decorative technique of the period, used in everything from household items to church paraphernalia. The object's description matches known production items from that era perfectly. Furthermore, the complete absence of any similar finds from the same geological stratum anywhere else in the world weakens the case for its authenticity. If an advanced civilization capable of such metallurgy existed 600 million years ago, we would expect to find more than a single, solitary vase, no matter how elegant, surviving the ages. The debate over the Dorchester pot ultimately hinges on the interpretation of context versus object. Do we trust the initial, dramatic eyewitness account of its discovery from within solid rock, an account made by men who are not trained geologists or archaeologists? Or do we prioritize the overwhelming evidence from the object's own design and material composition, which aligns it perfectly with the known technology and art of the 19th century? The pot itself has been lost to history, disappearing after its initial publication, leaving behind only the written description and the enduring mystery. This absence makes definitive analysis impossible, allowing both narratives to persist. The Dorchester pot serves as a powerful lesson in the philosophy of anomalous discoveries, reminding us that sometimes the most compelling mysteries are not about the artifact itself, but about the stories we tell to explain how it came to be found. It challenges us to weigh the allure of a paradigm-shattering discovery against the principles of Occam's razor, where the simplest explanation, a recent object displaced by a violent explosion, often proves to be the most convincing, even if it is the least sensational. While the colossal stone spheres of Costa Rica represent a communal effort on a grand scale, some of the most captivating relics are small, personal, and profoundly intimate. Our journey now takes us to the serene shores of New England's largest lake, where a peculiar object was unearthed that has resisted explanation for over a century. In 1872, workers digging a post hole for a fence on the property of a man named Seneca Ladd, near the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, struck something hard just beneath the surface. What they pulled from the earth was no ordinary stone. It was a dark, oddly shaped object roughly the size of a goose egg, weighing about 18 ounces and meticulously carved from a type of quartzite. But it was the surface of this stone that transformed it from a curiosity into an enduring mystery. Its entire face was covered in a bewildering array of carved symbols, including a smiling face, a teepee, an ear of corn, a star-like circle, a spiral, an arrow, a moon, and various lines and dots. This was the Lake Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone, and from the moment of its discovery, it has been a riddle wrapped in an enigma. The immediate question was, and remains, who created it and why. The symbols themselves are a cultural puzzle. The teepee, the ear of corn, and the arrow strongly suggest a Native American origin. The Abenaki people have a long history in the New Hampshire region, and the stone could plausibly be a ceremonial object, a talisman, or a storytelling device used by a shaman. Perhaps it was a sort of map or a calendar, with the symbols representing clans, celestial events, or seasonal cycles. However, this theory is complicated by other carvings, particularly the distinct, almost classical face with a faint, enigmatic smile. The features are not stereotypically Native American, in a way that aligns with most indigenous rock art from the area. This has led some researchers to propose a very different origin, that the stone is not ancient at all, but a product of the 19th century, created by a skilled artisan for a specific purpose. The 19th century theory opens up a fascinating array of possibilities. Seneca Ladd, the man on whose land the stone was found, was a well-known businessman and a patron of the arts. It is entirely plausible that the stone was a unique piece of folk art, commissioned by Ladd himself or created as a gift for him. Another compelling idea connects the stone to the flourishing fraternal societies of the era, such as the Freemasons or the Oddfellows. These groups were steeped in symbolism, often using complex iconography to represent their beliefs and degrees of membership. The combination of celestial bodies, the moon, the star, agricultural symbols, corn, and geometric patterns, the spiral, the lines could be interpreted as a Masonic or similar coded message. The stone's egg-like shape might even symbolize a philosopher's egg, an alchemical concept representing potential and creation, which would have been familiar to members of such esoteric orders. In this light, the stone is not a prehistoric relic, but a Victorian-era conversation piece, a tangible expression of the secret societies and intellectual curiosity that were prevalent at the time. Further deepening the mystery are the stone's physical properties. It is not a solid block. It is pierced by perfectly cylindrical holes drilled through from both ends, meeting precisely in the middle. These holes are smooth and uniform, suggesting the use of sophisticated drilling tools. In the 1970s, the stone was analyzed by geologists from the University of New Hampshire. They concluded that the stone had been worked with tools not naturally worn, and that the drilling marks were consistent with having been made in the 19th century. They also identified the material as a type of quartzite, specifically myelinite, a very hard stone that is not native to the Lake Winnipesaukee area. This means the creator deliberately selected a difficult-to-carve material that had to be transported from elsewhere, adding another layer of intentionality to the object's creation. The combination of hard, non-local stone and precise tool work makes a simple prehistoric origin less likely and strengthens the case for a more recent, deliberate fabrication. Despite these scientific examinations, no one has been able to definitively decipher the message of the symbols. Is it a narrative, a prayer, a set of instructions? Or is it simply a beautiful, abstract collection of motifs meant to evoke a sense of mystery? The stone's current home is the Museum of New Hampshire History in Concord, where it continues to baffle and intrigue visitors. It sits in its display case, a silent, polished stone with a dozen stories carved onto its surface, yet it refuses to tell us which one is true. The Lake Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone is a perfect example of a relic whose power lies not in its age or its material, but in its irreducible ambiguity. It is small enough to hold in your hand, yet it contains a universe of unanswered questions, reminding us that sometimes the most compelling historical puzzles are not found in grand tombs or lost cities, but right under our feet, waiting for a curious mind to ask, what does this mean? Now, from the personal mystery of a New England stone to an artifact that speaks to one of history's grandest questions, did the great civilizations of the Old and New Worlds have contact long before Columbus? This brings us to a small, unassuming terracotta head that has stirred up an immense debate. The story begins in 1933, when archaeologist Jose Garcia Payon was excavating a burial site at Calixtlahuaca in the Toluca Valley of Mexico. This was a site belonging to the Matlatzinca culture, a people who were later absorbed into the Aztec Empire. Deep within a sealed pyramid beneath an undisturbed floor that dated to before the Spanish conquest, Payon made a curious find. Among the typical offerings of local origin was a small, hand-modeled terracotta head, barely a few inches tall. At first glance, it might have been dismissed as just another figurine, but its style was utterly unlike anything else found in Mesoamerica. Instead of the familiar indigenous features, this head wore a distinct peaked hat known as a patassos, and its beard and facial structure bore a striking resemblance to classical Roman portraiture. This was the Tacaxic Calixtlahuaca head, an artifact that seemed to have been teleported across space and time. The immediate and obvious implication was staggering. If this head was genuinely a Roman artifact found in a sealed pre-Columbian context, it would provide tangible proof of transoceanic contact between the Roman Empire and the Americas, an event that would rewrite history books. The Roman Empire peaked centuries before the Aztecs, but its traders and ships ventured far and wide. Could a Roman vessel have been blown off course, crossing the Atlantic and making landfall in the Americas? Could the head have been traded through a long, intercontinental chain of cultures, eventually finding its way to central Mexico? The possibility is tantalizing, suggesting a world far more interconnected in antiquity than we ever imagined. The case for the head's authenticity received a significant boost decades after its discovery. In 2001, thermoluminescence dating was performed on the terracotta. This scientific method measures the amount of accumulated radiation within the clay since it was last fired, providing a reliable date for its creation. The results were explosive. The head was fired sometime between the 9th century before the Common Era and the mid-13th century of the Common Era. This date range is remarkably broad, but its upper end comfortably encompasses the height of the Roman Republic and Empire, while its lower end firmly places it well before any Spanish arrival. For proponents, this scientific analysis was the smoking gun, proving the artifact was ancient and compatible with a Roman origin, and its discovery in a sealed pre-Columbian burial mound seemed to confirm it had been deposited there long before European contact. However, the academic world is built on skepticism, and the case against the head's status as a Roman relic is equally compelling. The primary challenge lies in the archaeological context itself. While the burial was indeed sealed, the pyramid at Calixtlahuaca was not excavated with the meticulous, modern standards we use today. The possibility of post-colonial contamination cannot be entirely ruled out. Could the head have been introduced into the site after the Spanish conquest? Perhaps it was a possession of a Spanish colonist, maybe even an heirloom brought from Europe that was lost or buried at the site. Over centuries, natural processes or later digging by locals could have displaced it downward, allowing it to settle into an older layer, creating the illusion of a pre-Columbian provenance. This is a common and persistent problem in archaeology, where later objects can become mixed with earlier ones through burrowing animals, root action, or even the refilling of excavation trenches by past archaeologists. Furthermore, the stylistic argument is not as clear-cut as it first appears. Art historians have pointed out that while the hat resembles a Roman Pitosso's, similar styles of headgear appear in other cultures. More critically, the head is a crude, hand-modeled terracotta piece, not a finely sculpted marble statue. Its Roman features could be a coincidence of artistic simplification. Without any other corroborating evidence, no Roman coins, no pottery shards, no shipwrecks, no linguistic traces, the head remains a solitary anomaly. If there was sustained contact capable of delivering such an artifact, where is the rest of the cultural and material evidence? The silence from the archaeological record beyond this one object is, for many scholars, deafening. The most accepted explanation remains that the Tekaxic Calixtlahuaca head is a fascinating but ultimately misleading anomaly, likely a post-colonial object that found its way into an ancient context, creating a mystery where none may truly exist. Yet its enigmatic smile continues to challenge us, a persistent whisper of a possibility that the map of the ancient world may still hold a few surprises. Just when you think the debate over ancient knowledge has reached its limit, along comes a discovery so vast and so visually stunning that it seems to dare you to believe. In the summer of 1944, a German immigrant and hardware merchant named Waldemar Julsrud was riding his horse along the base of El Toro Mountain near the town of Acambaro in the Mexican state of Guanajuato. His eye caught something unusual protruding from the soil, a small, fired clay figurine, exquisitely crafted. Intrigued, Julsrud, who had a keen interest in local archaeology, enlisted the help of a local farmer, offering to pay for every similar artifact brought to him. What began as a single curious object soon became a flood. Over the next several years, Jolsrud's team, led by the farmer and eventually involving dozens of local workers, unearthed not dozens, not hundreds, but eventually more than 33,000 ceramic and stone objects from the area. This colossal collection, now known as the Acambaro figures, is unlike any other archaeological find on Earth. While many of the figures depict ordinary aspects of ancient Mesoamerican life, human figures, idols, everyday utensils, and familiar animals, a significant portion of the collection is utterly breathtaking in its strangeness. There are thousands of figurines that show humans interacting with, riding, fighting, and even playing with creatures that bear an uncanny resemblance to dinosaurs. Not just one or two types, but a whole menagerie of what look like brachiosaurs with their long necks, triceratops with their distinctive three-horned faces, stegosaurus with plates along their backs, pterosaurs with wings outstretched, and tyrannosaurus like theropods. The level of detail is specific and anatomical. These are not vague, dragon-like monsters. They display features that modern paleontology would only confirm and popularize years after Jolsrud's discovery. For those who accept their authenticity, the implication is earth-shattering. A prehistoric civilization in Mexico somehow possessed intimate, accurate knowledge of dinosaurs, creatures that had been extinct for 65 million years. The scientific community's reaction to the Acambaro figures was, and remains, one of almost universal dismissal. The primary reason is the fundamental, unbreachable anachronism they represent. The established archaeological timeline for the region shows human habitation dating back thousands of years, but the idea that humans and dinosaurs coexisted is a scientific impossibility according to every piece of fossil evidence we have. When a team from archaeologists from the United States visited in the 1950s, their investigation concluded that the figures were a hoax. They pointed to the fresh, unweathered surfaces of the artifacts, the lack of any dirt or calcium carbonate incrustation that would be expected from objects buried for centuries, and the fact that they were found in a chaotic jumble rather than in a stratified archaeological layer. The most damning evidence came from thermoluminescence dating tests conducted in the 1970s on a sample of the figures, which dated them to the modern era, around the 1930s or 40s, precisely the time they were being discovered. The theory embraced by nearly all mainstream archaeologists is that the Acambaro figures are a spectacular, large-scale example of a cottage industry hoax. Jolsrud was paying by the piece, creating a powerful financial incentive for the local farmers to produce as many artifacts as possible. It is believed that local artisans skilled in pottery crafted the figures, drawing inspiration from popular culture sources available at the time. The 1930s and 40s were a golden age of dinosaur discovery and public fascination. Movies like King Kong, which featured a brontosaurus and other prehistoric beasts, comic books, and museum exhibits were bringing images of dinosaurs into the public consciousness. A clever artisan could easily have modeled these figures after pictures seen in magazines or at a traveling exhibit. The sheer variety and sometimes fanciful nature of the creatures, including hybrid monsters and figures that don't match any known dinosaur, support the idea of creative fabrication rather than the preservation of ancient knowledge. Yet, despite the overwhelming scientific consensus, a small but persistent group of supporters continues to champion the figure's authenticity. They challenge the thermoluminescence results, suggesting that inaccurate testing methods or the figures having been reheated in a modern oven could have reset the clock used for dating. They point to earlier, similar figures found in the region that were documented before Jolsrud's discovery, arguing that he couldn't have been the inspiration for a pre-existing tradition. For these believers, the Acambaro collection is the ultimate suppressed evidence, proof of a lost civilization, perhaps even the legendary Atlantis or a forgotten human culture that survived from a much earlier epoch that lived alongside the dinosaurs. The figure's enduring appeal lies in this powerful narrative, a visual representation of humanity's deepest desire to connect with a fantastical past that challenges the rigid boundaries of conventional science. They stand as a testament not to ancient dinosaur tamers, but to the modern human capacity for creating mysteries that are, in their own way, just as fascinating as any truth. And now we venture from the controversial collections of Acambaro to a remote and desolate mountain in western China, where a different kind of manufactured-looking mystery is embedded not in soil but in solid rock. In the high, arid reaches of the Kadam Basin in Qinghai Province, near the city of Delinghe, sits Mount Baigong. The region is sparsely populated and starkly beautiful, but it's what lies on the shores of the nearby Tosan Lake that has sparked one of China's most enduring archaeological controversies. Here, partially submerged in the lake's saline water and protruding from the bank, are dozens of rust-colored iron pipes. These are not scattered debris, they appear to be part of a deliberate, interconnected network. The pipes vary in diameter from as thin as a toothpick to nearly 16 inches across, and they are found not just at the lake, but also embedded directly into the hard stone of Mount Baigong itself, leading to a cave where more pipes emerge from the ceiling and walls, pointing deep into the earth. Adding to the site's mystique is a nearby, heavily eroded natural formation that some have romantically described as a pyramid-like structure, fueling speculation that this was once the location of a sophisticated, ancient complex. The visual impact of these pipes is immediate and powerful. They look for all the world like the remnants of an industrial plumbing or ventilation system, a sprawling installation that seems utterly out of place in such a primordial landscape. This has led to a compelling, if extraordinary, theory that the pipes are evidence of a lost, technologically advanced civilization that inhabited the area thousands of years ago. Proponents suggest this could have been anything from a prehistoric mining operation that required a complex water management system to an even more speculative energy-generating facility, perhaps harnessing geothermal power from the mountain. The apparent scale of the network implies a level of social organization and engineering skill that, according to conventional history, did not exist in this region during a period that could account for the pipe's heavily rusted and ancient appearance. For ancient astronaut theorists, the site is a potential candidate for extraterrestrial influence, a base where advanced beings might have processed materials, with the pipes serving as conduits for fuel or coolant in an operation now long abandoned and eroded by time. The mystery deepened when samples of the pipes were taken for scientific analysis. In the early 2000s, researchers from a local smelter conducted tests and found that the pipes were primarily composed of iron, with significant amounts of silicon dioxide and calcium oxide. Crucially, about 30% of the material could not be identified. Furthermore, some reports suggested that the pipes displayed evidence of radioactivity. While these claims are difficult to verify independently, they added a layer of scientific intrigue to the site. If the pipes were indeed ancient and partially composed of unknown elements, it would significantly bolster the case for their anomalous nature, pointing to a metallurgical knowledge or even a material science far beyond what we typically attribute to any ancient culture. However, geology offers a far more natural, yet still fascinating, explanation for the Baigong pipes. The most widely accepted theory among scientists is that these structures are not pipes at all, but rather remarkable examples of fossilized tree roots. This process, known as pedoturbation or the formation of root casts, occurs over immense periods. When a tree dies and decays, its root system leaves a hollow, tube-shaped cavity in the soil. Over millennia, mineral-rich water, particularly water high in iron oxide, percolates through the ground, depositing these minerals into the cavity. The minerals eventually harden, creating a perfect pipe-like cast of the original root system. This process can create structures with astonishingly regular diameters and branching patterns that mimic engineered pipes. The varied sizes of the Bagong pipes correspond perfectly to the different sizes of roots in a large tree system, from tiny feeder roots to the main taproot. The high iron content in the local sediment and groundwater provides a ready source for the rust-colored mineralization that gives the pipes their metallic appearance. Another plausible geological explanation points to the dramatic power of lightning. When a powerful lightning bolt strikes sandy, silica-rich soil, the immense heat, which can exceed 3,000 degrees Celsius, instantaneously fuses the sand grains together into a glassy tube called a fulgurate. These natural formations are often hollow and branching, exactly like the Bagong pipes. Given the right mineral conditions, particularly the presence of iron, a fulgurate could take on a rusty, metallic crust over time that would be easily mistaken for wrought iron. While fulgurites are typically smaller than the largest Bagong pipes, the unique geological conditions on Mount Bagong, potentially involving multiple massive strikes over eons, could account for the larger specimens. The radioactivity some have reported could also have a natural source, such as higher than normal background radiation from the mountain's native rock, a common phenomenon in certain geological formations around the world. The true story of the Bagong pipes, therefore, lies in the tension between a dramatic, human-centered narrative and the slow, majestic creativity of the Earth itself. They are a powerful example of how pareidolia, our brain's tendency to see familiar patterns like pipes and conduits in natural shapes, can lead us to interpret natural wonders as human artifacts. The site requires no lost civilization or ancient astronauts to explain its existence. It is a testament to the incredible, often overlooked processes of mineralization and fossilization that can create structures of breathtaking complexity and order. Yet, the allure of the mystery persists. The Bagong pipes stand on that lonely mountainside as a monument not to a forgotten engineering feat, but to the boundless human imagination and to our enduring desire to find the fingerprints of intelligence, even in the beautiful and mysterious handiwork of nature. But now we travel to the harsh, beautiful landscape of eastern Utah, where a story persists not about a singular object, but about a discovery that, if true, would shatter the timeline of human migration into the Americas. This is the tale of the Moab mastodon, a legend rooted in the testimony of one man and the frustrating absence of any physical proof. In the late 1920s, a geologist named Frederick James Pack was conducting a survey near the town of Moab. According to the story he later recounted, his team made a find of colossal significance. While excavating, they reportedly unearthed the nearly complete skeleton of an American mastodon, a massive, elephant-like creature that roamed North America during the Pleistocene epoch. The incredible part, however, was the claim that lying directly alongside the mastodon bones, in the same undisturbed layer of sediment, was a human skeleton. The implications of such a discovery would be revolutionary. The established scientific consensus, supported by a vast body of archaeological evidence from sites like Clovis in New Mexico, posits that the first humans crossed into the Americas from Siberia via the Bering Land Bridge no earlier than around 16,000 to 13,000 years ago. Mastodons, however, are believed to have gone extinct around 10,000 years ago. Finding a human skeleton in direct association with mastodon remains in Utah would not only suggest a human presence on the continent far earlier than commonly accepted, but it would also provide dramatic, tangible evidence of human interaction with these Pleistocene megafauna in that specific region. It would force a complete re-evaluation of the peopling of the New World, pushing back the arrival dates by many thousands of years and opening the door to theories of much earlier and perhaps different migration routes. The power of this story lies entirely in the credibility of its source. Frederick James Pack was not a fringe figure. He was a respected professor of geology at the University of Utah, a scientist with a solid reputation. He published his account in 1930 in a scientific journal, the Pan American Geologist, giving it an air of academic legitimacy. In his article, he described the site in detail, noting the stratigraphy and the apparent undisturbed nature of the deposit. He was adamant that the human remains were not an intrusive burial from a later period, but were contemporaneous with the mastodon. For those who support the possibility of pre-Clovis human occupation in the Americas, Pack's account became a key piece of anecdotal evidence, a tantalizing what-if from a reputable witness. However, the story of the Moab mastodon is a classic case study in why the archaeological community demands more than a compelling anecdote. The reasons for its dismissal are numerous and foundational to the scientific method. The most glaring issue is the complete and total lack of physical evidence. The skeletons, both human and mastodon, were reportedly removed from the site and sent to the University of Utah for study. Yet, despite extensive searches by later researchers, no record of these specimens has ever been found in the university's collections. There are no catalog numbers, no bones in storage, not even any photographs or detailed drawings of the excavation. The entire monumental discovery has vanished without a trace. In science, the rule is that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and here there is no evidence at all beyond a written account. Furthermore, the specific location of the find has never been successfully identified. Pack provided a description, but subsequent expeditions to the Moab area have failed to locate the exact site or find any corroborating evidence, such as stone tools or other cultural materials that would be expected at a genuine kill site or burial ground. Without the site, it is impossible to verify Pack's claims about the stratigraphic context. Critics argue that it is entirely possible the geologist misinterpreted what he saw. The human skeleton could have been a much more recent Native American burial that had sunk down into the older layer over time due to natural processes like animal burrowing, root action, or soil liquefaction, a common phenomenon that can create the illusion of contemporaneity between objects from vastly different time periods. The archaeological community's skepticism is therefore not a matter of closed-mindedness, but one of rigorous standards. A single, uncorroborated report, no matter how credible the source, cannot overturn a consensus built upon decades of meticulous excavation, radiocarbon dating, and peer-reviewed analysis from hundreds of verified sites. The story of the Moab mastodon remains in the realm of unverified anecdote, a fascinating footnote in the history of American archaeology. It serves as a poignant reminder of the fragile nature of historical evidence and the immense importance of proper documentation and preservation. The real mystery of Moab is not whether humans lived alongside mastodons, but what truly happened to the evidence that a respected scientist swore he found, leaving behind only a ghost of a story that continues to haunt the edges of our understanding of America's ancient past. Our journey now takes us from the wild landscapes of the Americas to the heart of ancient Egypt, to a temple dedicated to the goddess Hathor at Dendera. Here, in a secluded crypt beneath the temple complex, a stone relief carved into the wall has become the focal point of a debate that pits mainstream archaeology against provocative alternative history. The image is striking. It shows a large, oval-shaped object reminiscent of a giant, elongated light bulb. Inside this bulb, a snake stretches outwards, its head pointing away from a cord-like object that seems to attach the larger vessel to a pedestal held by a kneeling figure. A second figure stands nearby, as if operating the device. To many modern eyes, this scene is unmistakable. It appears to be an ancient Egyptian depiction of an electric light bulb, complete with a filament represented by the snake and a power cable. This is the so-called Dendera light, and for those who support the theory of ancient advanced technology, it is a clear-cut case of lost knowledge. The interpretation seems compelling at first glance. Proponents of the ancient electricity theory point to the precise details. The bulb has a socket-like base. The snake inside is held in place by supports that look like the filaments in an early 20th century light bulb. The entire assembly is connected by a cable to a box, which could be interpreted as a power source or a battery, perhaps even a device similar to the theorized Baghdad Battery. They argue that the reliefs in these crypts were not for public display but were in hidden, subterranean chambers, places where dangerous or sacred technological knowledge might have been kept secret. How else, they ask, could the Egyptians have illuminated the deep, windowless interiors of their tombs and temples like the pyramids without leaving any traces of soot from torches or oil lamps? The dendrolite, in this view, offers an elegant solution. They used electric lighting, and this carving is the schematic diagram they left behind. However, Egyptologists offer a radically different interpretation, one grounded in a deep understanding of Egyptian mythology, symbolism, and religious texts. They explain that the light bulb is not a technological device at all, but a highly stylized representation of a lotus flower. In Egyptian creation myths, the lotus is profoundly significant. It is the flower that emerged from the primordial waters at the dawn of time, from which the sun god himself was born. The snake emerging from the lotus is a symbol of the god Harsomptus, a manifestation of the sun god, and more broadly, it represents the concept of divine life force, spirit, and creation. The entire scene is a complex cosmological diagram, not an electrical blueprint. The filament is the snake deity, the power cable is actually a lotus stem, and the box is a jed pillar, a symbol of stability and the backbone of the god Osiris. The kneeling figure is the god Her, representing eternity, and the standing figure is a protective deity. This mythological explanation is supported by accompanying hieroglyphic inscriptions within the crypts. These texts explicitly describe the scene in spiritual terms, relating to the journey of the sun god through the underworld and his daily rebirth. The snake is not an inert piece of wire, it is a living god, an embodiment of energy, but it is a sacred, life-giving energy, not an electrical current. Furthermore, the artistic style of the Ptolemaic period, when this temple was built, is known for its elaborate and heavily symbolic representations. To interpret this image literally as a light bulb is to strip it of its cultural and religious context, replacing a rich tapestry of myth with a modern, technological analogy that would have been completely alien to the priests who carved it. The debate over the dendrolite ultimately highlights the immense challenge of interpreting ancient art through a modern lens. It is a classic example of pareidolia, where we see familiar patterns, in this case 20th century technology, in ancient symbolism. The theory persists because it offers a simple, seductive answer to a genuine mystery: how the Egyptians achieved such precision in near-total darkness. Yet, the absence of soot is not the mystery it seems. Archaeologists have found ample evidence of the use of cleverly designed reflective copper mirrors to channel sunlight deep into structures, and of simple, smokeless oil lamps that could have been used in well-ventilated areas. The dendra relief fails as technology when we look for supporting evidence. Where are the wires, the batteries, the generators, or any other artifact that would form a complete electrical system? The mythological interpretation, on the other hand, is consistent with everything else we know about Egyptian religion and temple art. The dendrolite does not illuminate a chamber with electricity, but it brilliantly illuminates the vast gulf between our technologically saturated worldview and the sacred, symbolic universe of the ancients, a universe where a snake in a lotus flower was not a filament but a god. But from the sun-scorched temples of Egypt, we plunge into the deep, mysterious waters off the westernmost tip of Japan, where a discovery on the ocean floor presents a mystery of such colossal scale that it can be seen from space. In 1986, a local diver searching for new sites to observe hammerhead sharks near the island of Yonaguni stumbled upon something that defied imagination. What he found was not a coral reef or a shipwreck, but a massive monolithic structure rising from the seabed. This was the Yonaguni Monument, a sprawling complex of rock that stretches over 150 meters in length, rising to a height of 27 meters. Its surfaces are not the irregular, weathered shapes of typical underwater rock formations. Instead, they are dominated by breathtakingly sharp, 90-degree angles, perfectly flat platforms, what appear to be grand staircases with uniform steps, and even a trench that encircles the entire structure like a protective moat. To many who have seen it, including experienced geologists and archaeologists, it looks undeniably like the ruins of a vast, ancient pyramid or a ceremonial center, a lost city swallowed by the sea. The case for the Yonaguni Monument being an artificial, or at least artificially modified, structure is visually compelling. Proponents, most notably the late marine geologist Professor Masaki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus, who dedicated decades to studying the site, point to specific features that seem to defy natural explanation. They highlight two massive, perfectly rectangular pillars standing side by side. They point to a feature nicknamed the turtle, a flat platform with a carved-out shape that eerily resembles the stylized turtles found in ancient Okinawan folklore. Perhaps most striking are the twin megaliths that look like giant, finely carved faces, reminiscent of the Moai statues of Easter Island, their features smoothed by millennia of ocean currents but still retaining a humanoid appearance. Professor Kimura argued that the sheer concentration of these geometric forms in one location, including what appear to be carved channels and drainage systems, is statistically impossible to have occurred by chance alone. He proposed that the monument is the remnant of a sophisticated culture, perhaps the mythical civilization of Mu, that thrived when sea levels were much lower during the last ice age. Around 10,000 years ago, as glaciers melted, the rising waters would have submerged this coastal civilization, preserving its greatest structure on the ocean floor. The primary challenge to this captivating theory comes from the powerful and relentless forces of nature itself. Skeptics, led by renowned geologist Robert Schoch of Boston University, who is himself no stranger to challenging established timelines, having proposed an older date for the Sphinx, argue that the Yonaguni Monument is a spectacular but entirely natural formation. The rock is a type of sandstone, specifically a mudstone, that is heavily fractured along natural parallel and perpendicular planes, a characteristic known as jointing. Over thousands of years, the powerful tidal currents in the Yonaguni area have acted like a master sculptor, exploiting these weak points in the rock. The water has eroded the softer stone along the joints, relentlessly washing away material and leaving behind the sharp, clean edges and flat surfaces that we see today. The steps are simply layers of rock of differing hardnesses eroding at different rates. The turtle and faces are classic examples of pareidolia, where our brains impose familiar patterns on random natural shapes, much like seeing animals in clouds. Schoch and others contend that while the formation is incredibly impressive, every single feature can be explained through well-understood geological processes without invoking a lost civilization. The debate often hinges on a critical distinction. Is the monument purely natural, or could it be a natural formation that was later modified by human hands? This terraforming theory offers a compelling middle ground. It suggests that the Yonaguni structure began as a natural rock formation with a strikingly geometric shape. Then, an ancient culture, perhaps drawn to its unique appearance, could have used simple tools to enhance its features. They might have widened the existing cracks to create clearer steps, chiseled the platforms to make them flatter, and carved the rock faces to accentuate shapes that were already suggestive. This would explain why the monument lacks the typical artifacts of a settlement. No pottery shards, no tools, no burial sites have been conclusively found in the immediate vicinity. It may not have been a city, but a sacred site, a natural temple that was ritually modified for ceremonial purposes. The absence of clear, indisputable tool marks is a significant hurdle for the purely artificial theory, but it is less of a problem for the terraforming idea, as the natural base would have done most of the work. Ultimately, the Yonaguni Monument remains one of the world's most profound underwater mysteries because it exists in a literal grey area, a place where the line between nature's art and humanity's handiwork is blurred beyond easy distinction. Diving on the site is a disorienting experience. One moment you are looking at a cliff face that could be in any desert canyon, and the next you are swimming over a staircase so perfect it seems to demand human use. The truth may be that we are asking the wrong question. Instead of trying to force a binary choice between natural and man-made, Yonaguni might be teaching us that the ancient relationship between people and their environment was more fluid and interactive than we often assume. It challenges our definitions of what constitutes a monument, whether it is a masterpiece of geology, a relic of a forgotten civilization, or a hybrid of both. The Yonaguni Monument stands as a silent, stone sentinel guarding the secrets of a time when the world's coastlines looked vastly different, a permanent question mark carved into the bedrock of the ocean floor. Perhaps no relic blurs the line between ancient art and modern biology more perplexingly than an object that seems to have fallen out of a high school science textbook and into a Columbian museum. Known as the genetic disc, this artifact is a circular slab of lyddite, a hard, black stone roughly the diameter of a large dinner plate. Its surface is not carved with gods or animals, but with a series of intricate, deeply engraved diagrams that are startlingly familiar to anyone with a basic knowledge of life sciences. The images appear to depict with unnerving clarity the very building blocks of life. One section shows ovum and sperm cells, complete with their distinct wriggling tails. Another illustrates a fertilized egg, and then a sequence that seems to show the stages of cell division, from a single cell dividing into 2, then 4, and so on. Most astonishingly, there are detailed renderings of a developing fetus in various stages of gestation, and even what some interpreters claim are accurate depictions of human anatomy, including the male and female reproductive systems. The implications of these carvings are quite literally biological. If this disc is genuinely a prehistoric artifact, it suggests that an ancient culture in Colombia possessed a sophisticated, microscopic understanding of human reproduction and embryology thousands of years before the invention of the microscope. Proponents of its authenticity argue that this knowledge could not have been stumbled upon by accident. It had to be the result of direct observation. This leads to the kind of speculative theories that such objects invariably attract. Was this knowledge gifted by advanced extraterrestrial visitors? Or does it point to a lost human civilization that achieved a level of scientific understanding that was then completely wiped out, leaving behind only this enigmatic stone as a cryptic record of their genius? The disc's very existence, if taken at face value, would force a radical rewrite of the history of science, placing the discovery of genetics not in the 19th century, but in a shadowy, forgotten epoch. However, the compelling narrative of the genetic disc begins to fray the moment one examines its provenance, which is arguably the murkiest aspect of its entire story. The disc was not discovered during a controlled, documented archaeological dig. Instead, it first came to light in the hands of a private collector. The most common account states that it was found by a farmer in the vicinity of Sutatosa, Colombia, sometime in the early 20th century. There are no photographs of its discovery, no records of its exact location within a stratified site, and no associated artifacts found alongside it that could help date it. It simply appeared a fully formed mystery without a past. This complete lack of a secure archaeological context is a massive red flag for historians and archaeologists. In the world of artifact authentication, provenance is everything. An object's value as historical evidence is directly tied to knowing where it came from, in what layer of earth it was buried, and what other objects were buried with it. Without this chain of custody, the genetic disc enters the realm of an unprovenanced or orphaned artifact, making any claims about its age purely speculative. This problem is compounded by the complete absence of peer-reviewed scientific analysis. Despite the extraordinary nature of its claims, the disk has never been subjected to the kind of rigorous, independent testing that will be required to establish its age and authenticity. There have been no thermoluminescence tests to determine when the stone was last exposed to heat, no analysis of the patina or micro-erosion patterns in the carvings to see if they are consistent with great age. The primary source of information about the disk comes from the very collectors and authors who promote it as an anomaly. This creates a clear conflict of interest and falls far short of the standards required for academic acceptance. Until the disk is made available to a panel of independent geologists, archaeologists, and materials scientists, its status will remain firmly in the category of claimed rather than verified. When experts in pre-Columbian art and archaeology examine the genetic disk, they see not an ancient mystery but a modern puzzle. Their skepticism focuses on two main areas: the material and the style of the carvings. While lyddite is a hard stone, the precision and clarity of the engravings are unlike any known examples of indigenous Columbian craftsmanship. The lines are sharp and deep, lacking the wear and patina that would be expected from an object that had been handled or buried for centuries. More importantly, the artistic style of the diagrams is completely anachronistic. The representations of cells, sperm, and fetuses are not stylized or symbolic in the way ancient artists typically depicted the natural world. They are instead highly literal and technical, mirroring the precise, clinical illustrations found in modern biology textbooks from the 20th century. This is the most damning evidence against the disk's antiquity. It appears that the artist was not drawing from life or from a mythological understanding of creation, but was directly copying images from a source that would not exist for thousands of years. The most plausible explanation, therefore, is that the genetic disk is a clever and intriguing modern forgery, likely created in the 20th century. The motive could have been financial, designed to fool a wealthy collector interested in the paranormal, or it could have been an artistic hoax intended to provoke exactly the kind of debate it has generated. Another possibility is that it is a genuine archaeological object, but one that has been completely misinterpreted. The biological diagrams could be abstract geometric patterns, spirals, and circles that we, with our modern scientific minds, are misinterpreting through the powerful lens of pareidolia. What we see as a sperm cell might have been a symbolic representation of a water droplet or a seed to its original creator. Without any cultural context to guide us, we are free to project our own knowledge onto the stone, creating a mystery that says more about our own time than it does about the ancient past. The genetic disk ultimately serves as a mirror, reflecting our fascination with the origins of life and our deep-seated desire to find confirmation that the secrets of biology were known long ago. It is a compelling story carved in stone, but one that, upon closer inspection, reveals itself to be a tale written not by ancient geneticists, but by the unresolved tensions between our curiosity and the strict demands of evidence. Our final journey takes us to the high, windswept Altiplano of Bolivia, to the shores of the legendary Lake Titicaca, where an unassuming stone bowl has ignited one of the most heated and far-reaching debates in all of archaeology. The story of the Fuente Magna bowl begins in the 1950s, though its exact origins are as murky as the lake's own depths. It was reportedly discovered by a local farmer working near the village of Chihuahua, not far from the pre-Incan ruins of Tiahuanaco. For years, the large, beautifully carved vase-like bowl, made of a single block of dark stone, was used for a decidedly mundane purpose, as a trough to feed the farmer's pigs. Its significance went entirely unnoticed until it eventually caught the eye of a local antiquities enthusiast, who recognized that this was no ordinary object. What makes the Fuente Magna bowl so extraordinary and so controversial is the writing covering its interior. The bowl is generously inscribed with two distinct types of script. On one side, there are beautifully executed pictographic characters, similar to those used by the ancient Pucara culture, a civilization that flourished in the region around 2,000 years ago. This local connection makes perfect sense, but it is the inscriptions on the other side of the bowl that sent shockwaves through the world of alternative history. These are not indigenous South American symbols. To the astonishment of the few epigraphers who have studied it, the characters appear to be a form of Proto-Sumerian cuneiform, the world's oldest known system of writing, developed in Mesopotamia, in what is now Iraq, over 5,000 years ago and thousands of miles away across the Atlantic Ocean. The implications of this are quite simply breathtaking. If the inscriptions are genuine and ancient, the Fuente Magna bowl becomes arguably the most important out-of-place artifact ever discovered. It would suggest direct transoceanic contact between the cradle of civilization in the Middle East and the emerging cultures of South America in a period around 3,000 years before the Common Era. This would completely upend our understanding of the Bronze Age world, painting a picture of intrepid Sumerian explorers or traders navigating the vast Atlantic and establishing a presence in the Andes. Proponents of this theory, like the Bolivian scholar Don Max Portugal Zamora and later the Argentine-Italian researcher Bernardo Biodos, point to specific symbols on the bowl that they claim match known Sumerian signs for terms like nursing goddess and divinity, suggesting the bowl may have been a sacred vessel used in libation ceremonies for a goddess like Ninki, the Sumerian deity of earth and waters. In this narrative, the bowl is a solitary, stranded relic of a monumental cultural exchange, a piece of Mesopotamia left behind on the shores of the world's highest navigable lake. Naturally, such a revolutionary claim has been met with intense skepticism from the mainstream archaeological establishment. The criticisms are formidable and focus on several key issues. The first and most significant is once again the complete lack of a secure archaeological context. The bowl was not excavated by archaeologists. It was found by a farmer, and its original location and surrounding soil layers were never documented. This means there is no way to independently verify its age or confirm it was genuinely associated with other pre-Columbian artifacts. Without this provenance, the door is wide open for the possibility of a hoax. Skeptics argue that the bowl itself could be a genuine ancient Bolivian artifact, but the cuneiform inscriptions could have been added much later, perhaps in the 20th century, by someone seeking to create a sensational forgery. The linguistic analysis itself is a major point of contention. The cuneiform on the Fuente Magna does not match any known standard Sumerian script perfectly. It appears to be a mixed or degenerate form, incorporating elements from different periods and regions. Mainstream Assyriologists, experts in ancient Mesopotamian languages who have examined photographs of the bowl, often dismiss the inscriptions as gibberish or a clumsy imitation. They argue that the signs are incorrectly formed and arranged in a way that does not conform to the grammatical or syntactical rules of any known Mesopotamian language. In their view, a skilled forger may have had access to books showing cuneiform characters, but lacked the deep linguistic knowledge to assemble them into a coherent, meaningful text. The translations provided by supporters are therefore seen as highly speculative and unconvincing to the specialists who dedicate their lives to deciphering these ancient texts. Yet the mystery persists, kept alive by the bowl's undeniable physical presence and the tantalizing questions it raises. Why would a forger go to such lengths to create a hoax on a relatively obscure object, only for it to languish for decades in a small Bolivian museum with little international fame or financial gain? The mixture of local Pucara glyphs with the supposed cuneiform is also peculiar. A hoaxer might have been expected to cover the entire bowl in exotic script to make their point more forcefully. The existence of other, smaller artifacts with similar strange inscriptions found in the region adds a layer of complexity, suggesting the Fuente Magna may not be entirely alone. Ultimately, the bowl sits at the painful intersection of what we know and what we might dream. It represents the ultimate historical what-if, a vision of an interconnected ancient world that challenges the isolated development of civilizations. Whether it is a profound piece of evidence for pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, an elaborate modern fraud, or simply a unique example of indigenous art that we have yet to fully understand, the Fuente Magna Bowl serves as a powerful, silent testament to the fact that the final chapter of humanity's ancient story may still have a few surprising and hotly debated paragraphs left to be written. And so our journey through 30 of history's most stubborn enigmas draws to a close, a trek that has taken us from ancient shipwrecks to mountain peaks, from dense jungles to the ocean floor. We have stood before artifacts that seem to scream of impossible technology, like the Antikythera Mechanism's intricate gears and the Ayod wedge's refined aluminum, challenging the very timeline of human ingenuity. We have pondered geological riddles like the London and Kingudi hammers, sealed in rock that defies their existence, and we have gazed upon formations from the Nazca Lines to the Yonaguni Monument that blur the line between nature's masterpiece and humanity's handiwork. We have encountered tales of hoaxes like the Acambaro figures and the Ica stones, crafted with such purpose that they continue to captivate despite being debunked. And we have wrestled with profound mysteries of faith and science like the Shroud of Turin that resist any single, comfortable explanation. This incredible diversity is the true heart of the puzzle. These relics are not a monolith, they are a spectrum of mystery, each one demanding a different set of questions and challenging a different facet of our understanding. What binds them together more than any shared origin or common answer is the powerful human desire they represent. These objects are magnets for our curiosity, our yearning to find patterns and meaning in the silent depths of time. They tap into a deep-seated need to believe that the past holds grander secrets, that there were civilizations whose brilliance was lost to the ages, or that our world has witnessed visitors from beyond the stars. This desire is not a weakness, it is the engine of discovery. It is what drives archaeologists to dig deeper, historians to re-examine old texts, and scientists to develop new methods of analysis. The debate surrounding each relic, the heated arguments between mainstream academics and alternative theorists, is not a sign of failure, but a vibrant, essential dialogue. It is the process by which we test our ideas, challenge our assumptions, and slowly, painstakingly, separate the whispers of truth from the roar of speculation. These puzzles force us to confront the boundaries of our current knowledge, reminding us that history is not a closed book but a living, breathing narrative that is constantly being rewritten with each new discovery. Ultimately, the greatest lesson these 30 relics teach us may not be about the past but about ourselves. They hold up a mirror to our hopes, our fears, and our boundless imagination. In the perfect spheres of Costa Rica, we see a reflection of our own search for order and cosmic harmony. In the controversial glyphs of the Fuente Magna Bowl, we see our longing for a more interconnected ancient world. And in the unreadable script of the Voynich Manuscript, we see the ultimate symbol of our intellectual humility, a stark reminder that some secrets may remain forever just beyond our grasp. They compel us to remain curious, to question authority, and to embrace the possibility that the world is far stranger and more wonderful than we have yet dared to imagine. The exploration is far from over, so we turn the question over to you. Which of these 30 puzzling relics captured your imagination most profoundly? Was it the celestial computer of the Antikythera Mechanism, the haunting image on the shroud, or the colossal mystery of Yonaguni? Share your thoughts and your own theories down in the comments below. And if you're ready to continue the journey into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next expedition into the